Chapter 30-50. Fong Xian was gripped in Yi Qinghan's hand, his body twisted as he was beaten to a pulp. He didn't even have time to unleash his strongest move. He didn't even know why he was defeated. Every time he used his strongest move, Yi Qinghan would somehow block it. Why? Fong Xian roared, unwilling to give up. A hint of mockery appeared on Yi Qinghan's chiseled face. He pulled up his sleeve with his left hand, revealing the little white cloud on his wrist. He calmly said, because this is the companion of the sovereign's energy source. The Xinyi cloud is there to prevent the sovereign's energy source from being scattered when it is being gathered. Its defense is enough to block the devouring of the primordial black hole for a long period of time. With your little strength, it is impossible for you to break through its defense. I'll fulfill your little wish. Can you tell me how Fong you died? Fong Xian roared, unwilling to give up. I lost to the treasure, not to you. I'm still number one in the world. Okay. You're number one in the world. I won't fight with you for this title. Someone like you who would devour even your own family is the most shameless person in the world. I don't think anyone will fight with you for this title. Yi Qinghan shrugged. Fong Xian's eyes flashed fiercely. That old fart was too much of a hindrance. He deserved to die for helping me become number one in the world. So you're saying that Fong you didn't die at my hands? You did devour him, right? Yi Qinghan asked coldly. Fong Xian roared, yes. Yi Qinghan, let's fight fairly if you have the guts. Crack. Yi Qinghan exerted force and broke Fong Xian's neck. The power of the sage swarmed over, suppressing the sage's soul. Where's the fairness in the world? Once you're dead, the entire secondary universe and the 3 subworlds will be at peace. Who in the world will dare to besiege Insane Mansion? Boom! In an instant, the sage's energy waves were vast and mighty, crushing Fong Xian's soul and destroying his life force. Once Fong Xian died, the turtle sage, who was about to attack, shrank back. As for the overturning sky sage, even if he had the power to overturn the sky, he couldn't hold up the sky alone. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi merged and stepped onto the battlefield, stopping Sage shrouding heaven. Yan Yunbei only attacked once, but he managed to stop Sage shrouding heaven, giving Yi Qinghan enough time to kill Fong Xian. At this moment, he immediately retreated. Futian was shocked and immediately retreated. He said to the Turtle Ancestor, you hold back Yi Qinghan. I will be responsible for killing all the upper echelons of the crazy manor. We still have a chance. Slap. Roar. At this time, a bone dragon rushed into the sky and swam through the Qiu heaven region, turning into a bone sword in midair. Qian Yixue appeared out of nowhere and stood at the entrance of the ancient immortal world. Sage Shutian immediately frowned and scolded unhappily, Qian Yixue, are you one of the 9 sages? Now that Fong Xian is dead, as long as we kill Yi Qinghan, the 8 sages will still be evenly matched. Do you want to become a slave in the future by standing out to stop us? I won't be a slave. As for you, I don't know. Qian Yixue said calmly. Sage Shutian's expression was extremely ugly. If the turtle ancestor was held back, he wouldn't be a match for Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! Sage Shutian wanted to retreat, but would Yi Qinghan allow him to? Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and blocked Sage Shutian's path. He said coldly, since you're here, don't think about leaving. As for the turtle ancestor, you can leave now. Sage Shutian was a fence-sitter, so why would he risk his life? When he saw that Yi Qinghan allowed him to leave, he immediately smiled and said, thank you, Manor Lord Yi. If you need, I can also help you get rid of Shutian and Fong Xian's subordinates. Sage Shutian was instantly enraged and roared, Turtle Ancestor, you cowardly turtle. You've been a turtle your whole life, and now you want to be a turtle? You're not worthy of being a sage. Yi Qinghan smiled and looked at the group of people brought by Turtle Ancestor. Many of them were experts in defense. It would be best to have them cooperate with him. If the Turtle Ancestor is willing to help, I'll be extremely grateful. In the future, when the three subworlds are united, your and Sage Qianishua's forces will not change. Yi Qinghan promised confidently. Then, this old man will thank you first. Turtle Ancestor immediately cupped his fists and said. Whoosh! Turtle Ancestor waved his hand, indicating that his forces were blocking Fang Xian and Shutian's escape route. Yi Qinghan said coldly, Shutian, I'll give you a chance to live. Surrender, whether you can live or not depends on your performance. Hiss, Sage Shutian took a deep breath and looked at Qianishue and Yi Qinghan. He didn't know where Yan Yunbei was hiding, and Turtle Ancestor had betrayed him. He couldn't even defeat Yi Qinghan, so how could he fight against three sages? Boom! The Shutian sage sword pierced through the primal chaos land and gave up resistance. I admit defeat. I only ask that you don't destroy this old man's children. Sage Shutian said in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan replied indifferently, I didn't plan to deal with you in the first place. You're the ones who came to die. If the 9 sages worked together, my crazy manner would be weaker. However, with just a few sages, you're simply courting death. Whoosh! Bang! Bang! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and slapped Sage Shutian's body several times. Sage Shutian's body went limp and he lost all resistance. Hum! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took the Shutian sage sword. He looked at the Fang Xian sacred ground and Shutian sacred ground's army and said coldly, leave. It's best if you don't do anything. If you cause trouble, my crazy manner will find you. Without a sage, the army didn't dare to do anything. They all bowed and retreated. Sage Turtle Ancestor also had a fawning smile on his face. Abode Lord Yi, there are also 2 sages from the northern part of the Crazy Mansion Immortal Kingdom. I wonder if Abode Lord Yi has any plans. Yi Qinghan exhaled. If there were only 2 sages in the northern region, it wouldn't be a big deal. Flame Emperor and Ultimate Sage Thieving Heaven could deal with them. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand. Everyone from Crazed Manor, return to the northern war zone. If there are any casualties in Crazed Manor, don't let a single one of the 2 sages and their men escape. The Crazy Manor's experts didn't need to do anything. They quickly retreated into Crazy Manor and rushed north. At this moment, the battle in the northern region was more intense than at the Crazy Sky Realm because they were evenly matched. It wasn't like the Crazy Sky Realm where Turtle Ancestor was an opportunist. Hum! Whoosh! Whoosh! The Mortal King's sword in Flame Emperor's hand scanned the sky and sent Song Sage flying with one slash. Ultimate Sage Thieving Heaven lured away Heaven-bestowed Sage and killed his way into the depths of the galaxy. However, he didn't attack and was only stalling for time. Whoosh! Whoosh! The Flaming Emperor was strong. The Renhuang's sword covered the sky and evaded the attack. The Heavenly Tao retreated. The attack in the sky affected even the ground. The Tsang Mu sage was in despair like never before. He was completely suppressed and the aftershock was blocked by the Flaming Emperor. By using the power of the secondary universe, Flame Emperor had almost become a virtuous paragon. Chapter 3051. The battle in the eastern Qiutian domain could not be considered a fight. Fang Xian was killed and the Turtle Ancestor surrendered. Fuqian did not even have the courage to fight. Yi Qinghan quickly led the Crazy Manor back to the northern Xiong Immortal Kingdom. At this moment, no one expected another sage to make a move. It was none other than the Star Profound Sage. The Star Profound Sage's target was not Yen Emperor or Ultimate Saint Thieving Heaven, but Tsang Mu Sage. Roar! Xing Xian's attack was fast and without any warning. It was a complete sneak attack. Taking advantage of the moment when Yan Emperor pushed Songmu Sage back, he slashed his sword and shattered Songmu Sage's body. Even his soul could not escape. It was a devastating blow. Puff, Songmu Sage looked at the star-profound sage who was holding him in dissatisfaction. His mouth was full of blood and he could not even let both sides suffer. You can't see the situation clearly. You deserve to die. Xing Xian bent down and whispered. Crack, crack, crack. The sage sword stirred in Songmu Sage's body, taking away his remaining life force. Xing Xian then slammed his palm on Songmu Sage's head. Whing. Boom. Songmu Sage's soul was extinguished on the spot. His hands went limp and his eyes closed. His consciousness fell into darkness. Yan Emperor was also shocked. Xing Xian Sage had been hiding in the depths of the void for a long time. Yan Emperor had always known that Xing Xian Sage was hiding in the dark. Therefore, he had always held back and did not dare to kill Songmu. He did not expect Xing Xian Sage to be hiding in the dark. He also did not expect Xing Xian to suddenly kill Songmu. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was leading a large group of experts back. The army below was fighting. The two sages, Songmu and Tianzong, were surrounded by the chess saint. They were trapped in a whirlpool formation and were completely surrounded. The upper echelons of the crazy manor were charging, killing anyone they saw. Blood flowed like rivers and corpses piled up like mountains. Yi Qinghan happened to see the Xing Xian sage make his move, and he frowned. He had yet to arrive at the battlefield, and the Xing Xian sage definitely did not notice his arrival. Yet, the Xing Xian sage had attacked the Songmu sage at such a critical moment. Interesting. Now I don't even know what to do with you. Yi Qinghan muttered to himself. With a wave of his hand, he sent the last batch of experts from the insane mansion to the battlefield. Then, he soared into the sky and arrived beside the Flame Emperor. Who is the other sage? Where are they now? Yi Qinghan asked in a deep voice. It's the Celestial Sage. The Celestial Sage was lured away by the Celestial Sage in the depths of the Milky Way. The Yan Emperor calmly wiped off the Celestial Sage's blood on the Mortal Emperor sword and sheathed it. Yi Qinghan smiled and looked at the star-profound sage. He cupped his fists and said, "This Yi owes Senior another big favor. I am extremely grateful. If there is a chance in the future, I will definitely repay you generously." Xing Xian smiled faintly and said majestically, "Since I have helped you from the beginning, I will help you to the end. It is not my style to give up halfway. You can go and find the heaven-blessed sage. Leave this to the army. Our army has already arrived." Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, countless armies came from the north. They swept through everything and cut off the retreat of the Songmu sacred ground and the heaven-blessed sacred ground. Whoosh. Yi Qinghan left and went straight to the depths of the Milky Way. At this moment, the Celestial Sage was constantly jumping through space and mocking the Celestial Sage. Ha ha ha. A sage is only a so-so. I gave you 10% of my speed and you can't even catch my sleeve. What a loser. The Celestial Sage laughed. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The Celestial Sage fled as he fled. His fighting style was similar to Sovereign Ye's. He never fought the enemy head-on. He was only in charge of escaping. The direction of his escape was under his control. He kept approaching the chaotic heavenly domain of a secondary universe of the ancient immortal subworld and rushed into the Seeking Heaven domain. Once he entered the Seeking Heaven domain, no one could stop the Celestial Sage's footsteps. His figure flashed and disappeared. Yi Qinghan chased after them. Although he could no longer see the two's figures, the aftermath of their explosive power did not disappear. The aura was still there. Whoosh! The order of the universe was completely suppressed by Yi Qinghan. He crossed a secondary universe in an instant and chased into the seeking heaven domain. At this moment, the celestial sage was circling around with the celestial sage. Terrifying chaotic energy rolled like a flood, destroying everything. Many adventurers were affected and died on the spot. Roar! The celestial sage roared, "Thieving heaven, if I don't kill you today, I'll change my surname to yours. Ha ha ha, good son, let me hear you call me father." The celestial sage's figure flashed. 9 afterimages appeared and stood in 9 directions. It was impossible to tell which one was real and which one was fake. The celestial sage roared and shattered the chaos with his sword. He destroyed the 8 afterimages, but the real body disappeared. The terrifying fluctuation in the seeking heaven domain alarmed Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! Thud thud thud, Yi Qinghan had a strange expression. As long as he killed celestial sage, only half of the secondary universe's sages would be left. Xian Yixue was on his side. As for Xian Xing and Turtle Ancestor, those 2 fence-sitters were not a concern. As for Zi Jin and Xiaoyu Sage, it didn't matter who they stood on. The heavens are truly helping me. After destroying these 3 virtuous paragons, the chance of those virtuous paragons coming out is next to none. Yi Qinghan murmured to himself as his figure flashed and appeared outside of the battlefield. Ha ha ha, Mansion Lord Yi, you didn't disappoint me. You killed Fang Xian and the others so quickly. If you didn't come, I would have lost a son. The celestial sage grinned. Roar! Whine! The celestial sage flipped his wrist. The celestial sage sword was incomparably cold. He stared at Yi Qinghan with shock. Turtle Ancestor, Shrouding Heaven, and Fang Xian joined forces. No matter how bad they were, they shouldn't have been defeated so quickly. Fang Xian, Shrouding Heaven, and Turtle Ancestor are all dead. The celestial sage angrily roared. Yi Qinghan held the blade in his left hand and rubbed his nose with his right. He smiled and said, Fang Xian is dead. Turtle Ancestor turned traitor. Shrouding Heaven surrendered and was captured. Tsang Mu was killed by Senior Xian Xing. You are the only one left who is still struggling. The army you brought. I'm afraid it has been completely annihilated. Impossible. Hiss hiss hiss. The celestial sage sucked in a breath of cold air and unwillingly roared. Yi Qinghan faintly smiled and flipped his hand. Fang Xian and Shrouding Heaven's tokens appeared in his hand. This was a symbol of status. Seeing the tokens was the same as seeing the sages. As long as they weren't dead or captured, their tokens wouldn't appear in the hands of the enemy. Yi Qinghan calmly reminded, once the sages die, their merits and refined sovereign's essence will scatter with the wind. If you want to die, you can resist. If you don't want to die, then kneel and surrender. I will reluctantly accept. This will prevent the world from falling into chaos and the subworlds from fighting each other. Surrender. The celestial sage was arrogant his entire life. How could he surrender without using his sword? Roar. The celestial sage's aura was vast and mighty. His sword rainbow pierced through the origin universe. He pointed his sword at Yi Qinghan and coldly said, I want to meet a rising star like you. Chapter 3052. Hum. The sword pierced through Qiu Tian domain. The chaos was vast and mighty, like a torrent rolling and stormy waves crashing into Qiu Tian domain. The moment heaven-blessed sage attacked, one would know how glorious his life was. Whoosh! Boom! Yi Qinghan was even more powerful. He had already prepared for this attack and was in perfect condition, mobilizing the power of the primal universe. This attack was enough. Heaven-blessed sage's combat skills were higher than Fang Xian's, but his combat power was not as good as Fang Xian's. Whoosh! The entire Qiu Tian domain seemed to be lifted. Endless power crushed order, Dharma, and Logos. As the sword slashed down, it split Qiu Tian domain. A man-sized gully appeared in the sky above Qiu Tian domain, swallowing everything and absorbing Heaven-blessed Sage's body. Heaven-blessed Sage was about to stab forward, but halfway through, he was sucked in by the gully and lost control of his body. His body shattered the void and broke free from the shackles. Bang! The moment Heaven-blessed Sage broke free, Yi Qinghan's sword that could split the universe slashed in front of Heaven-blessed Sage. Hum! Whoosh! Heaven-blessed sword met the attack head-on, containing the Dharma and Logos of the universe, order, and sage power. This sword represented his peak. Boom! Heavy madness broke all order and slashed on Heaven-blessed Sage's sword. A crack appeared on the blade, and the sword was bent. It slammed into Heaven-blessed Sage's chest and cut his shoulder. Puchi! The sword was invincible. It cut through Heaven-blessed Sage's defense and tore his robe. Instantly, blood stained heavy madness. Crack! Heaven-blessed Sage wanted to stand still, but his body could not withstand such a huge impact. His arm and leg bones were broken, and his spine was broken from the center. He had no chance to resist at all. Ah! Heaven-blessed Sage's face was distorted by the heart-wrenching pain. He screamed in pain. When his leg bones could not take it, his body was thrown into the distance like a kite with a broken string. Once a rising star rises, you won't even have a chance to resist. Boom! Yi Qinghan's sword slashed across Heaven-blessed Sage's chest and landed on the origin of chaos. He kicked, driving the power of the 5 elements, into Heaven-blessed Sage's body. Puff! Heaven-blessed Sage spurted blood and flew backward, smashing into sky-seeking domain of another secondary universe. Cough cough. Heaven-bestowed Sage's mouth was full of blood. His internal organs were all spilled out. The order in his body was completely destroyed. The chaotic power destroyed his original order. He roared in pain, You are not a sage. You have touched the threshold of virtuous paragon. Boom! The Heaven-blessed Sage's legs were powerless. He held his sword and knelt in the heaven domain at the beginning of chaos. His legs were trembling and he couldn't even stand up. It's too late for you to realize this. From the moment you decided to follow Feng Xian to attack Kuang Fu, it meant that your path to becoming a sage was cut off. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed fiercely as he stepped in front of Heaven-blessed Sage. He waved his saber and placed it on the sage's neck. He coldly said, There was a path to heaven but you didn't take it. Kuang Fu isn't a place for anyone to attack. Heaven-blessed Sage smiled miserably. This defeat was too miserable. There was no hope of victory. Even though Yi Qinghan could only use this move, only a virtuous paragon would be able to stop him. Even if a virtuous paragon could kill Yi Qinghan with a wave of their hand. I didn't think I would lose. Heaven-blessed Sage mournfully howled. His hands couldn't even hold on to his sword. In the face of absolute power, all the profundities of a sage couldn't withstand a single blow. Yi Qinghan groaned and stepped on Heaven-blessed Sage's chest. He coldly said, Instead of being a sage, you chose to become a ghost under my blade. I let you leave alive the first time, but you dare to come a second time. You should be prepared to die. Boom! Puchi! Yi Qinghan fiercely stomped down and swung his blade. Along with the universe's order and ruler's power, he destroyed Heaven-blessed Sage's life force. A sage of a generation died on the spot. However, at this moment, extreme saint-thieving Heaven's figure flashed. He waved his hand and controlled the surrounding space, wrapping up Heaven-blessed Sage's corpse. You're really wasteful. A sage is dead, but the refined ruler's energy in his body won't disappear for no reason. Nonsense. Extreme saint-thieving Heaven controlled the corpse and forcefully gathered the escaping ruler's energy into a ball. He waved his hand and kept it in his palm. Ha ha ha, the position of sage is within my grasp. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven was ecstatic, as if he was afraid that the ruler's energy would escape. Yi Qinghan frowned and muttered, that works too. Then wouldn't it be a waste if I just killed Feng Xian and threw his corpse away? Idiot. The ruler's energy source won't disappear for no reason. You've lived for so long and yet you don't even know this. You're clearly a rookie who doesn't pay attention to details. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven shook his head in dissatisfaction. You've lost 2 sages. Tsang Mu Sage and Feng Xian's corpses were not used in time. Now that the ruler's energy source was scattered in the heaven-seeking domain, without little white cloud's protection, the energy source was already scattered and could not be gathered again. Yi Qinghan grimaced in regret. Sigh, Yi Qinghan sighed softly and snorted, since you knew, why didn't you remind me? Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven raised his white brows and retorted, how would I know you were so stupid? I thought that the Manor Lord of Crazy Manor Immortal Kingdom would be very smart, but in the end, you're an idiot. Yi Qinghan was speechless, not knowing how to refute. At this moment, Yi Qinghan secretly laughed. With a flip of his wrist, the ruler's energy source was quickly hidden in his chest. Even Yi Qinghan didn't notice it. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven glanced at the ruler's energy source in Yi Qinghan's palm. Even if it was just a glimpse, it was enough. Because he dreamed of obtaining the ruler's energy source, he was especially sensitive to it. Fuck. This is the first time I've seen such a divine pet play with its master in the palm of its hand. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven couldn't help but wave his hand and roll his eyes. Yi Qinghan was stunned, then turned to look at Yi Qinghan who suddenly appeared. He stared at Yi Qinghan and said, you got it. Why didn't you tell me? Yi Qinghan was instantly enraged. He originally wanted to show off to Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven, but who knew that Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven would betray him? You old thing. Yi Qinghan roared at Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven. How did I offend you? I was just showing off. Did you have to betray me? TCH. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven grinned and laughed. He wasn't afraid of Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan stared at Yi Qinghan and gestured with his hand. Take it out and let me see. Yi Qinghan curled his lips and said with a pout, I'm the ruler's energy source. Naturally, I can feel the overflowing ruler's energy source. Just now, I wanted to secretly steal the ruler's energy source from Tianzong's body. Who knew that this old thing would be one step ahead of me? Yi Qinghan frowned and asked, what do you want the ruler's energy source for? I've gathered all the ruler's energy sources in the world. I'm a ruler, and a conscious one at that. I can control all order and create a new order. Of course, I want more ruler's energy source. Yi Qinghan argued. Are you sure? Yi Qinghan was shocked and immediately asked. Yi Qinghan shrugged and whispered, I'm not sure. I'll give it a try. Chapter 3053. Yi Qinghan looked at Sovereign Ye's wretched expression and didn't know what to say. Hiding the ruler's origin source without knowing anything. If it was confirmed, he would probably throw the world into chaos and have all the sages besiege the crazy mansion to destroy it. Yi Qinghan shrugged and said, forget it, if the ruler's origin source can be gathered together, then Ancestor Yuzun wouldn't have separated it back then. Just give it to Brother Monkey King, Qingyu, Mu Zhuang, or Old Smoke. You can give it to whoever you like, I won't ask. Sovereign Yi murmured, right, why didn't I think of this? If the ruler's origin source can be gathered together, then why would virtuous Paragon Yuzun go for something far away? Yi Qinghan shook his head and returned to the secondary realm before jumping through the secondary universe. Ultimate Saint Thieving Heaven grinned along the way. He finally obtained the ruler's origin source. After becoming a sage, he would be invincible under the virtuous Paragon realm. Flame Emperor and Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to threaten his safety. After all, he was simply too fast. Sovereign Yi, on the other hand, was very dissatisfied with ultimate saint thieving heaven. Old geezer, you still don't have a son or grandson, right? Sovereign Yi snorted. Ultimate saint thieving heaven was startled and asked, how do you know? Because you're too wicked. Sovereign Yi sneered, you're doomed to have no descendants. If your father knew, he would crawl out of his grave and break your legs. Anyway, there's no point in keeping you alive. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven's eyes widened as he glared at Sovereign Yi. He rolled up his sleeves and was about to teach Sovereign Yi a lesson. Supreme Yi immediately rolled up his sleeves and raised the corners of his mouth arrogantly. He said in disdain, you don't seem to be a sage yet. Why don't you give it a try? I'll let you see how powerful this Supreme Yi is. I won't bicker with you. A gentleman uses his mouth and not his fists. Let's use actions to prove it. If I have a son in 2 years, won't that prove that you're even more wicked? Ultimate Saint Thieving Heaven immediately went soft. He could only use soft power to prove Sovereign Ye's words wrong. Hee, Supreme Yi sneered. It's possible that you'll become a father 2 months after you get married. I'll make a bet with you. If I have a son, you'll give me your sovereign energy source. If I lose, then I'll be wicked. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven said confidently. Sovereign Yi looked at Ultimate Saint Thieving Heaven as if he was looking at an idiot. He bared his teeth and replied, I was already tired of this kind of verbal abuse when I was 3 years old. What does it have to do with me whether you're immoral or not? It's not like I'm going to die without descendants. I have a son, and I'm going to have a grandson soon. Sigh, unlike some people, it doesn't matter if they have 3 legs or not. Humph. Supreme Sovereign Yi snorted proudly and hurriedly chased after Yi Qinghan. Thieving Heaven Extreme Saint was so angry that he even gave up on becoming a saint. I'll prove it to you. If you don't have a son in 2 years, I'll treat you as my son. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven chased after him and roared. All right. Bah. Supreme Sovereign Yi did not pay attention for a moment and immediately fell for it. Yi Qinghan was about to reach northern Xiong Immortal Country. Looking at these 2 wretched people, if he didn't know better, he would have thought that they were father and son. At this moment, the northern Xiong Immortal Kingdom had gathered 80% of the Quang Manor's forces. Sangmu Sage and Tianzong Sage's forces were surrounded, and the experts sent by the Star Profound Sage cut off their escape route. Corpses and bones piled up like mountains, and blood flowed like rivers. The northern part of northern Xiong Immortal Country became a land of death, and the atmosphere was gloomy. However, the royal family of northern Xiong Immortal Country was especially excited. Northern Xiong Immortal Country also participated in this battle and became famous. Although their battle strength was not much, from today onwards, other than Crazy Manor, no one dared to provoke Northern Xiong Immortal Country. Xing Xian and Turtle Ancestor did not leave. They were waiting for Yi Qinghan to return. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan distorted the void and appeared outside Northern Xiong City. The army was still gathering and could counterattack at any time to completely take down the sacred grounds. Looking at the tired army of Crazy Manor, Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and shook his head. The war is over. From today onwards, it's time to enjoy life. The army was silent for a moment before they let out a thunderous roar. Roar! Whoosh! The army roared, and the war flag waved in the wind. Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and said in a deep voice, from today onwards, you can go anywhere in the 3 subworlds. No matter where you go, the Crazed Manor will be your backer. Anyone who dares to attack the Crazed Manor for no reason will be killed no matter how far away they are. Crazy Manor. Crazy Manor. The army was incomparably excited. Now that the war had ended, the remaining sages would definitely not be enemies with Crazy Manor. Everyone from Crazy Manor is dismissed today. You can choose to stay in the Celestial Nation and be rewarded with land and nobility. You can also choose to leave the celestial nation and find the life you want the most. Everyone must wear Crazy Manor's special waist token. No one can copy it. Anyone who sees Crazy Manor's waist token can trust you unconditionally. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said confidently, Crazy Manor's people, you will always enjoy the protection of Crazy Manor. The waist token can be passed down to the direct descendants. Whoosh! Crazy Manor's heaven-conquering camp had been fighting for countless years. Now, they were finally able to enjoy extraordinary treatment. Even if a sage saw Crazy Manor's waist token, they would not dare to kill or humiliate them. Crazy Manor was a supreme power. Crazy Manor's people had supreme glory. They had been here, fought, and were always glorious. The brothers who died today will be rewarded with land and inheritance. Yi Qinghan announced a series of orders. The heroes were extremely excited. You all possess extraordinary statuses. However, your words and actions represent the glory of the Kuang Mansion. You are not allowed to bully the weak, nor are you allowed to sully the name of the Kuang Mansion. If anyone sees anyone impersonating the Kuang Mansion and committing crimes outside, you are allowed to eliminate them immediately, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Yes. Crazy Manor's army had persevered for so many years, establishing an inviolable glory for Crazy Manor. Anyone who dared to destroy this glory would die. Yi Qinghan's last sentence was enough to make Crazy Manor stand proudly for countless years. Dismissed. Whoosh! Boom! The tens of millions of Crazy Manor's soldiers bowed in unison, then cupped their fists and said, Manor Lord, this lowly one will take his leave. Whoosh! The tens of millions of soldiers dispersed. Crazy Manor was in their hearts, and they were Crazy Manor's people no matter where they were. Now that the war was over, it was time for them to find their own lives. Many Crazy Manor's people migrated to find the life they wanted. Some chose to stay in Crazy Manor Immortal Kingdom, and all of them were given titles, becoming overlords. At this moment, Xing Xian and Turtle Ancestor didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be so bold, directly disbanding the tens of millions of Crazy Manor's soldiers. This force could be taken away by anyone, and they could sweep through a major subworld. Yi Qinghan didn't think so. Crazy Manor had stabilized and controlled the overall situation of the three major subworlds. There was no need to gather Crazy Manor together. They had their own ideals and goals. It was time for them to retire and live the life they wanted the most without any danger. Who would dare to bully Crazy Manor in this world? Chapter 3054. The disbandment of the insane manor was so bold that the remaining sages felt their hair stand on end. They ordered that wherever the insane manor appeared, no one should make things difficult for them. In fact, they had to befriend them because no one dared to offend the insane manor. The 20 million heaven-conquering battalion and the 8 million private soldiers had fought for countless years. Some of them had even followed Yi Qinghan since they were young. They had stayed in the barracks all year round for the sake of their beliefs and the glory of the insane manor. Their combat strength was not as good as the older generation of the insane manor, but their persistence had never lost to anyone. When each of them left, their faces were filled with unswerving determination. Their handsome faces were as sharp as knives, and who knew how many scars were hidden on their bodies. Hua! Bang! When they passed by Yi Qinghan, they couldn't help but salute him. Yi Qinghan had never been stingy. From the beginning until now, he had never stopped saluting back. Yi Qinghan's eyes were red as he said, "One day, when the world is peaceful, I will summon all of you back for a drink. Manor Lord, we will wait for your summons. No matter where we are, we will rush back as fast as we can." Countless soldiers replied with the most resolute tone. Protect your lives. Remember, the insane manor Immortal Kingdom will always be your strongest backing. Everyone must carry a distress arrow. Once someone is attacked, fire it as fast as you can. The people of the Insane Manor Immortal Kingdom will come to your aid as fast as they can, Yi Qinghan said seriously. The soldiers looked at Yi Qinghan's instructions, and their eyes turned red. This manor lord looked young, but he was like a brother and a father. He put their safety first. The Star Sage and Turtle Ancestor Sage sighed. They had lived for so many years, but this was the first time they had seen such a force. It was so concentrated that it made their teeth ache. Da-da-da, boom boom boom. The army quickly retreated. Less than 10% of the Insane Manor Immortal Kingdom's people were left. Perhaps they were tired and wanted to rest in the Insane Manor Immortal Kingdom. They wanted to find a peerless beauty and get drunk on her lap. The ancient massacre god didn't leave. Not a single one of them left. Although they were disbanded, they were still in the Crazy Mansion Immortal Kingdom. Some returned to their minor planes, some went into seclusion in the mountains, and some became marquises. Yi Qinghan watched them leave one by one. He wished them well and prayed for their safety. The older generation of Quang Manor was still the same familiar faces, but there were fewer of them now. Yi Qinghan was helpless because he couldn't revive them. Pa! The Flame Emperor walked forward and patted Yi Qinghan's shoulder. He smiled and said, "What's the plan for the final step?" Yi Qinghan smiled and replied, "This is also part of the plan. The rest is to race against the Paragons and see who will enter the Paragon realm first." The Flame Emperor took a deep breath and slapped Yi Qinghan's palm. He said confidently, "I bet I'll be the first." Yi Qinghan grinned and shrugged, "I believe that. I won't compete with the seniors. It's enough as long as I enter the Great Paragon realm before they escape." The army dispersed. Xing Xian and Turtle Ancestor also retreated. The older generation of Insane Manor returned to the heaven-suppressing palace. This was a collective celebration. The ones who were the most tired were the older generation. They had held on for so many years. Back then, there were countless people from the older generation, but now, not counting the second and third generation, there were only about 10 of them. The rest had all died in battle. Supreme Yi took out 3 rulers' energy sources. Feng Xian and Song Mu Sage's rulers' energy sources were taken by him. Plus, Shrouding Heaven Sage was killed. These 3 rulers' energy sources were extremely precious. I don't know who to give them to. We're having a drinking contest today. No ancestral power is allowed. Whoever can last until the end will get these 3 rulers' energy sources. Supreme Yi looked at the experts with a teasing smile. Rulers' energy sources. The Insane Manor's experts were overjoyed. They all rubbed their palms together. "Ha ha ha, I won't give in this time." Qitian Monkey King laughed. Gu Qingyu also swore. Mu Zhuang and Jiang Jingtian also rubbed their palms together. Even the female Green Lotus Sword Saint wanted to join in the contest. Jian Qinshue, Emperor Yi, the owner, Fan Yin, and the others were nestled next to Yi Qinghan. When they saw that everyone had gathered together without scheming, they couldn't help but grin from ear to ear. They had given up on competing. They definitely couldn't beat these men in drinking. Count me in. Me too. Lin Wutian, Emo Li, Li Feng, Emperor Feng, Sui Shuguang, Stan Wuxia, Li Peiza, Su Zhan, Yi Qinxing, Hualing Tian, and the others all rushed over. They all wanted the 3 rulers' energy sources, but there were only 3 of them. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but feel a headache when he saw these demons going all out. How much wine would it take for them to ruin it? Supreme Yi wasn't afraid of things getting out of hand. Since there was no danger, why not indulge for a day? "Boss, you won't fight for it, right?" Jiang Jingtian was most afraid of Yi Qinghan making a move. He was an expert when it came to drinking. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and replied, "Don't worry, I won't participate. These rulers' energy sources are of no use to me." "That's good. I will definitely have a share of these 3 energy sources." Jiang Jingtian said confidently. Ha 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 ha, excited laughter came from the main imperial hall. The flaming emperor stood outside the hall and looked at the insane manners experts. He pursed his lips and smiled. However, as he smiled, 2 streams of tears flowed out of his eyes. If the Yen clan was destroyed, he would drink with the 36 elders and dance with the 9-colored Brahma heart. Unfortunately, there was no one to share it with. Whoosh! The flaming emperor retreated. He rode the scarlet flames with his sword and returned to Human Emperor Peak. In the main imperial hall, Mu Zhuang, Gu Qingyu, Qitian Monkey King, Green Lotus Sword Immortal, and a dozen others surrounded a large table. Each of them held a jar of wine and looked down at the 3 energy sources in Supreme Ye's hands. Boss, count me in. At this moment, the colorful snake transformed into Elegant Yi and appeared in the hall with a sinister look. Alright, then I'll be the judge. Each person has 10 jars of wine, and the person who drinks the first 3 jars will obtain a ball of energy. If all 10 jars of wine are still standing, then the person who drinks the first 3 jars will win. Yi Qinghan's playfulness was aroused. He sat up straight and clapped his hands. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Begin. Whoosh! In the main imperial hall, a dozen experts tore open the seals on the jars of wine. This was an immortal wine brewed by Yi Qinghan alone. It was very strong. Ordinary progenitors wouldn't be able to withstand a jar of it. Moreover, ancestral power was prohibited. Basically, not many people could withstand a jar. Gulp, gulp, everyone hugged the jars of wine and drank wildly. Bang, bang, bang. Supreme Yi slammed the table and shouted, come on, come on. Let me tell you a joke. From the first 3 drunkards. Supreme Yi had a wretched expression. He was about to interrupt them when Yi Qinghan interrupted him with a slap. Shut up. Yi Qinghan snorted. Supreme Yi could only shrug and sit down helplessly. The first jar of wine was quickly finished, but no one gave up. After the second jar, Sui Shuguang was the first to lose. He spat out the second jar. Chapter 30-55. The crazed manor was partying unscrupulously. Now that the Flame Emperor had retreated, Zhang Daoling watched in the dark. An unprecedented feeling welled up in his heart. The crazed manor was like a big family. There were no restrictions or hierarchy. Everyone could fearlessly sacrifice themselves for each other. Even if they encountered something like the sovereign's origin, they would fight over it. If it were any other force, they would have already fought. In the end, both sides would suffer. Pft, ha ha ha, Sui Shuguang was the first to lose. Not only was he not sad, he even laughed self-deprecatingly. Looking at the others drinking, the smile in his eyes was especially pure. After the third jar, Mo Li lost. So did Si Wuxia. However, they did not have too many distracting thoughts. A loss was a loss. They would not have any resentment. Yi Qinghan grinned. He clapped his hands and looked at Green Lotus Sword Fairy. He did not expect her to last until the fourth jar. Gulp, gulp. Gulp, bang. The wine jars were constantly broken. Pft. Then, Li Feng vomited. Without ancestral power, he really could not bear the impact of this strong wine. Damn. You guys are really wine buckets. Sui Shuguang was speechless. He could not even drink one jar, but the others drank so much. Especially the female Green Lotus Sword Fairy, it made him blush with shame. Shirgu had fallen. Yan Yunbei had fallen, Huo Lingtian fell. Boom. Boom. Bang. Bang. Su Zhan also fell down. Supreme Being Yi slammed the table gloatingly as he looked at them falling down one by one. He laughed so hard that he was convulsing. Pft. Green Lotus Sword Fairy lasted until the 7th jar. She could not hold on any longer. Tears came out of her eyes. She sat on the ground and mobilized her ancestral power to refine the strong wine. Yi Qinghan gently patted Green Lotus Sword Fairy's back. He was full of smiles. Jiang Jingtian, Mu Zhuang, Gu Qingyu, Qitian Monkey King, Li Peiza, Yi Qinxing, Lin Wutian, Yi Xiaosao, and Huoling Tian were still drinking. The wine in the jars was quickly decreasing. The remaining 9 people picked up the 9th jar almost at the same time. However, they were all on the verge of collapsing. Bang! Halfway through the 9th jar, Mu Zhuang fell to the ground. However, after 3 breaths, Lin Wutian fell to the ground in an even more confident manner. Ha ha ha, not only did Supremacy Yi not feel any heartache, he even mocked him even more. He drank 9 jars of strong wine for nothing. Bang! Huoling Tian fell to the ground. His face was red, and he was unconscious. There were still 6 people left in the 10th jar of strong liquor. 2 more would be enough. This group of wine buckets, let's see who is the unluckiest one to lose after drinking 10 jars of wine, Jian Qinxue said with a smile. I bet that Jing Tian, Monkey King, and Elegant Yi will win. Emperor Yi raised his small hand and shouted, Come, 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 place your bets. I bet that Li Peiza, Yi Qinxing, and Charming Yi will win. I bet that Brother Monkey King, Elegant Leaf and Li Peiza will win. Brother Gu Qingyu should be able to win, everyone shouted one after another. They all wanted to win this bet. Yi Xiaosa's voice was the loudest. This guy was best at poison. The key was that this guy ate everything. This bit of wine should be nothing to him. As expected, Elegance was the first to pick up the 10th jar of wine. This guy acted as if nothing had happened. Hubby, quickly place your bet and lose some money, Emperor Yi shouted cheerfully. Yi Qinghan touched his head and said, Elegant Yi, Brother Gu, and Brother Jingtian, it should be the 3 of them. Bang! Just as Yi Qinghan finished speaking, Jiang Jingtian fell straight down without hesitation. There was no room for negotiation. Fuck! Yi Qinghan patted his head. Jiang Jingtian really gave him face. Ha 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 ha, Supreme Yi and the others laughed so hard that they were convulsing. They had never been so presumptuous without any worries. At this moment, among the remaining 6 people, except for Elegance, anyone could fall in the next second. There was really no way to predict. Burp, Gu Qingyu, Li Peiza, and the others burped at the same time. It was full of the smell of strong liquor. Ha ha ha. I won. Elegance, who was the first to throw down the jar of wine, shouted excitedly. At this moment, Li Peiza grabbed the last jar of wine. His legs were trembling and his eyes were red. He tore open the seal and poured it into his mouth. Yi Qinxing rolled his eyes. He really couldn't drink anymore. With his last bit of willpower, he lifted the last jar of wine and slowly drank the strong liquor in the jar. He was like a little girl who would vomit if he drank too much. Gu Qingyu and Li Peiza couldn't take it anymore. Qitian Monkey King was about to turn into a red monkey. His face was like a monkey's butt. Now, whoever was eliminated would be the most miserable. No one dared to drink anymore. Otherwise, they would definitely be eliminated. Come on, the first winner has appeared. If you don't work hard, you'll be eliminated, Supreme Yi shouted excitedly. The 3 of them looked at each other with red eyes. At this moment, they could tell that the other party couldn't take it anymore. I won't give in. Li Peiza said firmly. Burp. I won't give in either, Gu Qingyu said firmly. Slap. Yi Qinxing's body swayed and he said with a grin, as if. I'll give in. Ha ha ha, Supreme Yi joked, if you don't give in, drink. 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 Qitian Monkey King picked up the 10th jar of wine. He was about to lose consciousness, but he still persisted. Yi Qinghan shook his head. If he had known, he wouldn't have bet so much. Now, the remaining 4 people wouldn't give up. They would probably lie down for a few days after drinking. Gulp, Gu Qingyu raised his head and drank again. His stomach was churning. If he vomited, he would probably vomit out his internal organs. Whoosh! When the others saw this, they couldn't help but start drinking. However, Yi Qingqing couldn't take it anymore and vomited. The wine jar in his hand fell to the ground. Another one down. Only Li Peiza, Qitian Monkey King, and Gu Qingyu were left. However, Elegant Yi had already won, so they had to eliminate another one. Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven appeared at this moment and said with a grin, "Little bitch, when they wake up, you'll be in trouble." The defeated people stared at Supreme Yi with evil intentions. He suddenly had goosebumps. Hey, don't be a sore loser. This is what you all agreed to, Supreme Yi shouted. Ha ha ha, Yi Qinghan laughed and said, drinking is friendship. Although I didn't participate, I still enjoyed it. Supreme Yi, you should drink a few jars to your heart's content. Let's pretend that nothing happened today. Mu Zhuang slowly woke up. He had a splitting headache and his mind was dizzy. However, he didn't forget to drag Supreme Yi down with him. Supreme Yi was intimidated by everyone's despotic power and could only choose to lower his head. In the end, he collapsed after drinking 2 jars of wine. He kicked his legs and felt very refreshed. It didn't matter who took the ruler's origin for the remaining 3 people. Yi Qinghan didn't care at all. As long as they were from the crazy manor, they were qualified to enjoy the ruler's energy. At this moment, the remaining 3 people were fighting for the last 2 spots. No one knew who would fall next. Chapter 3056. What Kuang Manor drank was wine, but what they enjoyed was friendship. There were countless powers in the world, but who could drink like this? The older generation of Kuang Manor was competing in drinking, and winning or losing was no longer important. However, the tens of millions of troops that were scattered all over the secondary universes were either dragging along their families or by themselves. They kept a low profile, and their auras were restrained. However, their capable and experienced style showed that they were not ordinary people. They traveled all over the place and enjoyed the beautiful scenery of the world. Most of them chose to enjoy the peace in the mountains. They were used to killing and wanted to live a peaceful life. However, there were also some people who were used to licking blood from the tip of their blades. Thus, they traveled the mortal world and saw life that they had never experienced before. Even if they saw some children running around happily, they would not stop laughing. In the Purple Sun secondary universe, there was an ordinary-looking young man. He had a resolute face and a scar between his eyebrows that had not healed for many years. He wore black clothes and carried a spear on his back, but it was already wrapped in black cloth. On the surface, he did not want to participate in the affairs of the world and only wanted to travel. He carried a waist tag under his black battle robe, but others could not see it. The waist tag shone with golden light, and the laws were attached to it. The 2 words, Kuang Manor, were engraved on the front, and the back was full of runes. The bottom corner was engraved with the words, Conquering Heaven Camp. This was the most ordinary soldier of Kuang Manor. There were also people from Conquering Heaven Camp engraved with the words, Official Army, or Assassin Path, which represented that they were from different branches of Kuang Manor. Conquering Heaven Camp, Official Army, Private Army, Assassin Path Army, Inner Sect, and Outer Sect. These were the only branches that ancient Massacre God had not left. This young man was only a small part of Kuang Manor, but he represented the entire Kuang Manor army. He was swift and decisive in his actions, and his steps were firm and powerful. He was only at the Taigu Emperor level, but he was full of righteousness. The young man, Wang Zhe, passed through forests and mountains before arriving at a main city of a secondary universe. It was chaos outside the city, and there were endless shouts. There were pleas for mercy and the sounds of fighting. Wang Zhe had seen this situation more than once or twice. Some of the fights were fair, and he would not act recklessly. However, this time was different. He heard the pleas of children and women. Wang Zhe slowly stepped outside the main city with his spear on his back. He saw a young man sitting arrogantly on a sedan chair, gesticulating and gesturing. More than 10 servants were ganging up on a family of 7 or 8 people. There were 2 old people in the family, who should be husband and wife. There were also 2 middle-aged men and women, who were also husband and wife. The remaining people were a 7 or 8-year-old boy and 2 15 or 16-year-old girls. They were all pretty. The 2 old people and the middle-aged couple were beaten to the ground, crying and begging for mercy. However, the young man with a face full of hostility showed no mercy, causing his subordinates to continue beating them. Even the 7 or 8-year-old child was not spared. The 2 young girls' clothes were almost torn, and they were in a sorry state. Wang Zhe frowned. He stepped forward and sent a servant flying with a kick. He scolded angrily, a group of young and strong cultivators attacking the elderly and children. Where is the decency? The young master glared at Wang Zhe with dissatisfaction and coldly snorted, "Little bastard, are you blind? Don't you know that this young master is the young city lord? These dogs not only offended this young master, but also stole my money. You actually dare to make trouble in this young master's territory. Do you want to be a hero and save the beauty? I think you're tired of living." Wang Zhe coldly snorted. He looked down at the family that had been beaten to the ground and the overturned luggage on the ground. No matter how he looked at it, it did not look like a thief. Instead, it was a bit like this young man coveted the beauty of the young girl and wanted to take the opportunity to kidnap her. Young hero. Help, we didn't steal his money. We were just passing by. I didn't expect this young city lord to take a fancy to my daughter. He failed to strike up a conversation and instead became angry out of shame. The middle-aged man's cultivation was average. He was knocked down after a few moves. His body was bleeding, but he still grabbed Wang Zhe, treating him as a life-saving straw. However, before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by one of the young city lord's guards and directly kicked to the ground. Wang Zhe exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He grabbed the spear with his right hand and slowly pulled it out. The coldness and battle intent in his eyes made people shudder. This was a soldier of the crazed manner. Even a small centurion had the might of a main city's commander, or even stronger. Nonsense. If you were in my celestial nation, no matter who you are, you would have been executed long ago. Wang Zhe coldly reprimanded. Ha 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 ha. The young city lord laughed sinisterly and boasted shamelessly, "Unfortunately. This is my territory. I call the shots. Men, capture this traitor. Capture him alive and you will be rewarded." The young city lord waved his hand and directly ordered. Hua! There were many people outside the city who were watching the show. They immediately scattered in all directions, but a few city guards surrounded them. 1 or 2 Taigu emperors. The rest were not worth mentioning. As for the Taigu emperor, he was very ordinary. Even if he wanted to enter the crazed manor, he might not be qualified. Wang Zhe sneered. He traveled the mortal world and represented the crazed manor. Buzz! The long spear trembled, and the tip of the spear shot out divine light. A small city lord like you dares to be so presumptuous? If I don't kill you today, who knows how many people will suffer? Wang Zhe's figure flashed as fast as lightning. To catch bandits, one must first capture the leader. However, he did not kill the young city lord first. Instead, he killed one of the Taigu emperors with his spear. The killing intent from years of battles enveloped the Taigu emperor, giving him no chance to resist. Puchi! Whoosh! The long spear pierced through the young man's throat and then swept across, sending the guards around him flying. Bang! 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 Whoosh! Boom! Wang Zai's actions were swift and decisive. He did not hesitate at all. No matter who the other party was, he killed without mercy. In the blink of an eye, 2 Taigu emperors were killed. The other servants did not have a chance to escape. How dare you? The young city lord was shocked. He retreated and shouted angrily, "Do you know that I am the young city lord? My father is an ancestor. If you dare to kill me, even if you run to the ends of the earth, my father will kill you." Roar! Wang Zai did not care at all. He was just representing Quang Mansion to uphold justice. Therefore, he directly attacked the young city lord with his long spear. Boom! At this moment, a figure soared into the sky from the city. His sword was graceful, and he attacked Wang Zai with a terrifying aura. The domain chief of the main city appeared. He was also a Taigu emperor, and a top-tier Taigu emperor at that. His sword collided with the long spear. The emperor's aura was vast and mighty, and the laws of order were distorted. Wang Zai's battle clothes were lifted, revealing the waist token of Quang Mansion. The domain chief was shocked and retreated dozens of steps, bringing the young city lord to the city gate. "You're from Quang Mansion." The domain chief was not afraid of anything, especially here. He was the local tyrant. Even the direct descendants of the strongest forces in the secondary universe would have to give face to this young city lord. However, Quang Mansion was different. Wang Zai snorted. "Yes, tell your city lord to come out and see me. Tell me whether this young city lord is dead or alive. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. I might as well enforce justice on behalf of the heavens and change the city lord." Hua! The people watching from afar were shocked. This was the first time the name of Quang Mansion appeared in front of them. In the past, they had only heard of how powerful and united Quang Mansion was, but they had never seen it in person. They did not expect to see a living member of Quang Mansion. The family that was saved was immediately moved to tears. They did not expect that the person who saved them this time would be someone from Quang Mansion. Quang Mansion's member was a synonym. Everyone who went out to uphold justice would accumulate merit points to Quang Mansion. Of course, the person who helped would also gain merit points. As a result, Yi Qinghan, as the master of Quang Mansion, would definitely gain a lot of merit points. Wang Zai was just a small part of it. Chapter 3057. Wang Zai held his spear and charged towards the city gate. He was going to enforce justice in the name of the crazy manor. "Fellow Taoist, there's no need to go overboard. You're using the name of the crazy manor to cause trouble in my Suncrete city. This isn't the territory of the crazy manor. As the saying goes, even a powerful dragon can't suppress a snake in its own territory." "You've stretched your hand too far," the lieutenant reminded coldly. However, the young city lord wasn't willing to give up. He growled, "Marshal Tian, help me kill him. He's just a small soldier from the crazy manor. Let's see if the crazy manor dares to mobilize so many people for him and come to my Purple Sun subrealm to fight against my Suncrete city. Besides, it's not like we don't have anyone behind us." The killing intent of the commander-in-chief Tian disappeared in a flash. In the end, he did not dare to go for the kill. After all, the crazed manor was famous. They had made a name for themselves in one battle and had killed several saints. A small Suncrete city was nothing in the eyes of the crazed manor. "Young city lord, there's no need to offend the crazy manor for him. If there's no other way, why don't we just bear with it and apologize?" The young city lord was instantly enraged and roared, "Are you one of the city guards of Suncrete city? If you don't have the ability, I'll get my father to take you down. You're just a lieutenant. You're my dog. How dare you apologize to a lowly soldier for me? Are you drunk? Marshal Tian was a peak expert of the Taigu Emperor. He was on the verge of becoming a half-martial ancestor. He didn't expect to be called a dog by a playboy. However, in order to protect his position, he could only bear with it. Are you going to kill this person or not? The young city lord's face was gloomy. He stared at Wang Zhe with vicious eyes. As the saying goes, a newborn calf isn't afraid of a tiger. He didn't care about the reputation of the crazy manor. Marshal Tian took a step back. He took out a bugle horn and blew it. The sound of the bugle horn resounded through the sky. Woo-woo, in an instant, the wind howled. Dark clouds covered the sky. The army in the city was mobilized. Even the commander of the city was alarmed. He was a half-martial ancestor expert. Wang Zhe snorted coldly. His left hand gripped the SOS arrow at his waist as he glanced at the family he had just saved. The middle-aged man's face changed. He quickly said, "Lord, you should leave first. If possible, take my wife and parents with you. I'll cover you." Humph. Wang Zian was filled with pride. The Quang Manor would only fight, not retreat. Whoosh! Boom. Quang Fu's distress arrow shot out of the clouds and exploded in the sky, tearing apart the dark clouds. A single firework represented countless meanings, shocking the heavens and earth and making ghosts and gods weep. In that instant, true experts felt their hair stand on end. Looking at the sky above Suncreed City, they couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. Which blind fool offended the Quang Manor? The battle has just ended, yet he's already stirring up trouble. I'm afraid only a hedonistic son would dare to do such a thing. An ancestor realm expert was truly afraid of the Quang Manor. They didn't even have the courage to resist. Only such a mischievous person would dare to offend the Quang Manor. At this moment, the army of 30 million was everywhere. They were scattered throughout the 3 subworlds, and each of the secondary universes had at least tens of thousands of them. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Bang. At this moment, the sky above the secondary universe was filled with fireworks. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and the experts who received the news did not hesitate at all and rushed to Suncreed City. The individual soldiers of the Quang Mansion were not weak. They were as fast as lightning, and they were in combat mode as they flew. Their armor shone with cold light, and their spears tore through the void. Outside Suncreed City, the commander hesitated for a moment because he discovered that Wang Zhe was a member of the Quang Manor. However, he soon lost the advantage because a captain of the Quang Manor had arrived. Xiao! 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 In less than a moment, more than 300 experts came from all directions of Suncreed City. Assemble! With a wave of Wan Fu's spear, the 300 Quang Mansion experts quickly formed a large group. Despite the large difference in numbers, the Marshal and Commander-in-Chief Tian were both stunned. Their hands trembled, and they didn't dare to order the army to charge at the 300 Quang Mansion experts. Boom. The army of Suncreed City didn't charge, but that didn't mean that the people of the Quang Manor wouldn't charge. 300 people against a main city's army had at least 700 to 800,000 people. However, the defending army kept retreating until they reached the main city, relying on the city walls to defend. Wang Zhe quickly explained the reason for the matter, and even told him that the young city lord wanted to kill him. The captain was a middle-aged man, and he was extremely protective. The young city lord was already despicable enough to bully people, but he still dared to order the killing of the people of the Quang Manor. Do you think the name of the Quang Manor is a joke? The captain pointed at the commander on the city walls and said coldly, "Tell your city lord to kneel when he goes out, or don't blame us for being ruthless. Tell the city lord to kneel when he receives the order." The city lord of Suncreed City was an ancestor, but it was because he was an ancestor that he understood how powerful the Quang Manor was. If he dared to kill one of these 300 people, he could forget about keeping the city. Even the sage wouldn't be able to protect him. The commander didn't dare to act recklessly, and ordered the army to prepare to shoot at any time. However, he specifically said, "I'll go inform the city lord. Without my order, no one is to shoot. Otherwise, they'll be killed without mercy." Then, the commander's figure flashed and left the city walls. The young city lord didn't say anything. His malicious eyes flashed as he waited for the commander to leave. After a long time, he waved his hand to signal the army. "Everyone, listen to my orders. Aim. Hua. Boom." The 10,000 crossbows aimed at the hundreds of people from the Quang Manor. However, more and more people from the Quang Manor gathered, especially with the passage of time. Now, it had increased to more than 1,000 people. Seeing the army of the Quang Manor increasing and the heavy infantry showing their heavy shields, the young city lord's hands trembled. He was afraid. If the name of the Quang Manor suppressed the city lord, he would be dead. Hua! Whoosh! An hour later, the army of the Quang Manor had increased to more than 4,000 people. The entire Quang Manor army of the secondary universe had returned. Hua! Boom! The 4,000 people under the command of the two captains were divided into 2 large groups and 20 small square formations. The army circled around. Even the captains could still command a group without the leadership of the chess saint. After the family was brought to the square formation by Wang Zhe, the Quang Manor army was ready for war. "Release the arrows, xiu xiu xiu." Hua! Countless crossbow arrows tore through the void and flooded the square formation of the Quang Manor army, but they were all shattered by the spears. The arrows at the front were blocked by the heavy infantry. This kind of low-quality attack was nothing to the Quang Manor army. At this moment, the commander and the city lord appeared in the sky. When they saw the army shooting the crossbow arrows, their hair stood on end. "Stop! Pa!" The commander-in-chief roared angrily and blocked the second wave of arrows. Following closely behind, the city lord flew onto the city wall and ruthlessly slapped his favorite son, throwing him off the city wall. Hua! The city lord of Suncreed City flew into the air and appeared outside the square formation of the Quang Manor army. He bowed and cupped his fists. "This one has failed to teach his son well and has disturbed the people of the Quang Manor. I am willing to accept my punishment." The 4,000 people of the Quang Manor army was facing hundreds of thousands of soldiers, but the city lord of the Ancestor Realm City had to bow his head and accept his punishment. This was the name of the Quang Manor. This glory was unprecedented. From today onwards, the Quang Manor will take over Suncreed City. City Lord Xian, I will give you a chance to make up for your mistakes. I want to see how you will deal with your son, the commander said coldly. My unfilial son used his power to bully others and blasphemed the name of the Quang Manor. He almost caused irreversible damage. This one is willing to accept his punishment. As for my unfilial son, I will leave it to you. I will not interfere with whether you kill or punish him, the city lord of Suncreed City said. In the name of the Quang Manor, kill. Chapter 3058. Kill. It was a simple word. Kill one to warn the others. Those who dared to bully the insane manor would die without a doubt. He wouldn't give those major powers any chance. The young city lord went soft on the spot. Father. I'm your son. The insane manor has gone too far. How can you be so cowardly here? The young city lord roared hysterically. The old face of the city lord of Suncreed City turned red with anger. This unfilial son of his didn't repent even at death's door. What was the insane manor? It was an existence that could kill sages. If the insane manor wasn't in the right, he could still fight back. However, the people of the insane manor were upholding justice. More importantly, his son actually dared to attack the army of the insane manor. Wasn't he courting death? Men, tie up Xin Yuan and hand him over to the insane manor. This unfilial son isn't my son. The city lord of Suncreed City scolded. Hua! Marshal Tian and the main city commander took the initiative to capture Xin Yuan and deliver him to the two captains of the insane manor. Boom! The middle-aged captain was definitely a nobody in the entire universe. However, at this moment, he was extremely domineering. Without even thinking, he pierced through the void with his spear and pierced the chest of the young city lord. The power of a half-martial ancestor was vast and mighty, drowning Xin Yuan's life force. Pooh! Xin Yuan died tragically on the spot. City Lord Xin, I don't care what your style was in the past. However, if the insane manor sacrificed a small soldier because of you, the insane manor will hold you accountable. Don't think that the insane manor will turn a blind eye to this matter just because the insane manor is far away. Those who offend us will be punished no matter how far away we are. The middle-aged captain said solemnly. That's right. The insane manor doesn't have much, but we still have the heart to uphold justice. If you don't care about your people, the people of the insane manor will take care of them. When the time comes, they will end up like this young city lord. I don't care how high his status is. Even if he's the son of a sage, we will still kill him. The other captain warned firmly. Hua! The people who were hiding far away outside the city were especially excited at this moment. They yearned for the name of Quang Manor and the soldiers of Quang Manor. Which force could suppress hundreds of thousands of soldiers and ancestor realm experts with just a few thousand people? Only the insane manor. The Quang Manor was making a name for itself, establishing its might, and accumulating merits. Who in the world wouldn't revere it? In less than 10,000 years, the entire subrealm would revere and support Quang Manor. By the time everyone in the three subrealms truly loved and supported Quang Manor, how many merits would Yi Qinghan and Quang Manor receive? Becoming a virtuous paragon was not that difficult. Yi Qinghan disbanding Crazed Manor might have been part of his plan, but his goal clearly wasn't to gain merit. He wanted everyone in Crazed Manor to enjoy the merit they had earned so that they could live the life they wanted the most. Suncreed City's city lord's expression slightly fell, and looking at the adventurers and solo players' attitudes, he understood why the crazy manor was so powerful. He bowed and said, "This old man has learned his lesson. From today onwards, this old man will restrain his subordinates and bring benefits to the world instead of oppressing our people." The two major commanders waved their hands. The 4,000 soldiers from the Heavenly Expedition Battalion, the official army, and the private army immediately dispersed in front of the army. However, the army from Suncreed didn't dare to attack. They didn't even have the courage to raise their divine crossbows. If anyone were to attack at this time and cause casualties, Quang Manor would bury them alive. The 4,000 or so people from the crazy manor left, and even the major left. Only Wang Zhe put away his heavy armor and put his spear on his back. He stretched out his hand and pulled up the old woman and her husband, as well as the middle-aged couple, and said calmly, "You're all safe now. If anyone dares to make things difficult for you, they will be making an enemy of the crazy manor." The family was moved to tears, and their respect for Quang Manor went without saying. Even the two young girls' eyes were filled with adoration. They adored Quang Manor's soldiers, and even if they were small soldiers, they were peerless heroes. The army didn't dare to act rashly. "Many thanks, esteemed one." The middle-aged man bowed and said, "Esteemed one, let this little one treat you to a meal. We really don't know how to repay you." Wang Zhe gave a faint smile and waved his hand as he said, "Quang Manor doesn't ask for anything in return. If we can accept it, we accept it. If we can't accept it, we won't force it. You may leave." Hua. After speaking, Wang Zhe turned and entered the main city and left. Outside the main city, Sun Creed City's city lord looked at the family in Xian Yuan's corpse on the ground. He really wanted to kill this family to avenge his son, but he didn't dare to. He didn't even dare to make things difficult for them. Otherwise, even the army would feel dissatisfied. Sun Creed City's city lord lightly sighed and waved his hand as he took out some money and said, it was this city lord who didn't teach his son well and allowed him to commit murder. This king feels guilty. Please accept this money as a token of my appreciation. Hua. Sun Creed City's city lord had given in. He had to change, or else the people of the city would lose hope. This family had never thought that even if Wang Zhe left, Sun Creed City's city lord wouldn't dare to act recklessly. They felt even more respect for the Quang Manor and quickly left with the money. The family left the main city and traveled through the night. Only when they arrived at a safe place did they rejoice and choose to rest. In the future, I'll definitely be like that uncle from before, so righteous that I can suppress the entire main city's army and city lord with my might. The 7 or 8-year-old boy's eyes were filled with worship and excitement as he clenched his little fists and said resolutely. The middle-aged man lightly sighed and said in a low voice, his name is the Quang Manor's name. It's the Quang Manor that suppresses the city lord so much that he doesn't dare to act recklessly. Now, any soldier from the Quang Manor can represent the Quang Manor. Which holy land in the world can do this? If one day you can become a member of the Quang Manor, you must be like that esteemed person just now. You must save people from the fire and water, not let them fall into the fire and water, understand? The little boy nodded resolutely. The Quang Manor's teachings were affecting everyone. Wang Zhe was only a small part of it, representing the 40 million soldiers. Everyone else's actions were more or less the same. They were chivalrous and righteous, saving people from torment. Quang Manor's merit points increased greatly, making it famous. No matter where these soldiers were, the heaven-suppressing prefecture was their route. At the same time, inside the grand hall of the heaven-suppressing prefecture, a group of people was having a good time. They weren't drinking wine but friendship. After so many years, their bitterness was finally over. As long as the 9 virtuous paragons were suppressed, the 3 subworlds and the origin universe would be at peace. The main imperial hall was filled with laughter and chatter. People were playing games with low IQ, but who wasn't a baby? These people were high and mighty, but their childlike innocence hadn't dissipated. Yi Qinghan smiled happily. His persistence didn't go to waste. Only the last step was left. Those who shouldn't have died, those who sacrificed themselves for the Quang Manor, would return. The Yen clan would return as well. The Yen emperor wouldn't have to be alone for the rest of his life. Li Peiza, Gu Qingyu, and Qitian Monkey King were still fighting. The last jar of wine was just like the last step for the Quang Manor. It was very difficult to take. Every sip would make them feel nauseous. Chapter 3059. After 3 days, the drinking contest finally ended. In the end, Li Peiza did not win against Qitian Monkey King and Gu Qingyu. However, it was already very good that Li Peiza could last until the end. It was not a loss. Even if he lost, he could only smile. Inside the main imperial palace, wine jars were scattered all over the floor. Everyone drank some. After Zhang Daoling and Flame Emperor left, Extreme Saint Thieving Heaven was the only outsider. However, he didn't treat himself as an outsider and came here specifically to drink. Once he drank, he immediately started arguing with the divine bird. The two of them started cursing at each other, leaving everyone speechless. This drinking contest lasted for more than 10 days. Finally, it ended. Yi Qinghan had finished all the wine in his hand. Yi Qinghan looked at the chaotic main imperial palace and could not help but wave his hand helplessly. Take your things and scram. Go back to your hometown and take a look. Also, tell the ancient massacre god to go back and take a look. It's time to go back and look for your clansmen. Boss, are you not going back? Jiang Jingtian rubbed his eyes and asked. Yi Qinghan pondered for a while and nodded. Yes, it's time to go back and see Master Nine Nether and the others. The first generation, second generation, and third generation experts of Kuang Manor were scattered. Even though they were scattered, no one dared to kill them one by one. Even if they wanted to, they might not have the ability to do so. Most of the experts of Kuang Manor were gathered in the small plains. Many of their clansmen had disappeared. After 100 reincarnations, only a few survived. There were also some who reincarnated through the small plains and lived another life. Some even recovered part of their memories. Most of the experts had lost their clansmen. Now, they could only wait for Yi Qinghan or Yan Emperor to become a ruler and revive the dead. Their years of hard work would not be in vain. Yi Qinghan brought Jian Qinxue, by Shaoxing, Emperor Yi, and the Green Lotus Sword Celestial back to the small plain. As for the district owner, the Nine Serenities Master, Lord Fozhen, and the other older generation, they were not in the mood to fight. They were all arranged to stay on Owl War Star. After so many years, this star was like a holy land. The word war was far from here. As long as one was here, all hatred had to be put aside. No one dared to mess around here. Nine Nether, Lord Fozhen and the immortal Peach Elder all had white hair. These elders were all people who had helped Yi Qinghan greatly. Now, he was in charge of their retirement. They fished and strolled together. They weren't lonely, and their lives were quite comfortable. Even though they were about to transform into the Tao, they still had divine medicines to prolong their lives. Yi Qinghan appeared in front of Nine Nether's group with 4 peerless beauties. His cultivation base was already enough to reach the ascendant stage, but in front of these people, he didn't put on any airs. He knelt down on one knee and said respectfully, Qinghan greets Master Nine Nether, Lord Fozhen, Xian Tao and the other seniors. Ha ha ha, the skin on Nine Nether's group's faces had lost its rosy color. They were all people who were about to die, but when they saw Yi Qinghan, Emperor Yi and the rest, they were still smiling like flowers. They had seen through life and death, and the only thing that could make them happy was that Yi Qinghan and the rest had returned to see them. Kid, have you completed your goal? Nine Nether smiled and said, if you've completed it, then don't leave. Accompany us old fellows for the last part of our journey. Yi Qinghan raised his head and knelt down on one knee in front of Nine Nether and the rest. He was inexplicably excited. This kind of sacrifice could make these elders happy, but it was also the happiest thing for him. Master, I'm just half a step away. But don't worry, I'll leave Huang, and Shaoxing behind. They will take care of your meals and lodging. I'll be able to complete the last half step very soon. When the time comes, I won't go anywhere and will accompany all of you every day. Yi Qinghan smiled and said. Finally, we can see the end. You've worked so hard for so long, it's time for you to rest. When do you plan to leave this time? Lord Fozhen looked at Yi Qinghan and asked calmly. Yi Qinghan wanted to say that he would leave tomorrow, but he didn't want to hurt these elders' feelings. Where's Wuxian? Lord Fozhen saw through Yi Qinghan's thoughts and changed the topic. Yi Qinghan immediately replied, he should be here soon. He made a trip to the ancestral town. Lord Fozhen had forcefully accepted Lin Wuxian as his disciple, but his feelings for Lin Wuxian were real. Lord Fozhen smiled and looked up at the sky. In this life, he was able to accept Lin Wuxian as his disciple and provide for Yi Qinghan's retirement. This life was worth it. After a while, Lin Wuxian appeared on Owl War Star and knelt beside the elders respectfully. Everyone in the crazed manor was grateful for their respect for their elders. If these elders hadn't supported them when they were young and weak, the crazed manor would have collapsed in the small plain. Everyone who found their clansmen were reminiscing about the past. The scenes of the past were like yesterday. However, there was one place that was especially harmonious. Zixin, someone from the mythical dimension. After falling out with his elder brother, the Z family completely retreated from the world and hid in the Xanadu. They avoided Yi Qinghan's calamity of devouring countless living beings. Zixin's cultivation level couldn't keep up with the rest of the Z family, but he had been silently supporting them from the back. He could be considered an elder in the crazed manner, but his cultivation level couldn't be compared to the core members. No matter how weak Zixin's cultivation level was, he was still much stronger than the Z family back then. Zixin found the Z family. His elder brother and parents hadn't reached the Tao transformation because of their cultivation level and the small plane. However, too much time had passed and they were on the verge of death. The Z family seemed to have forgotten about Zixin. When they saw Zixin, they were stunned. After a long time, the Z family was in an uproar. Zixin might not be the top figure in the crazed manner, but he was still the Taigu emperor. In the Z family, he was the top figure. Jiang Jingtian found the bloodline from back then. However, the acquaintances were all old, and the remaining ones were all descendants. Qitian Monkey King stood on the battlefield of the past, speechless for a long time. The young pangolin's cultivation level couldn't keep up, but he didn't die. He stood at the place where the old pangolin died, feeling the glory of his father. Yan Yunbei and Di Longtian returned to the ancient death god organization. The heavenly sword whistled, and Di Shang seemed to come alive. Gu Qingyu was all alone back then, but now he brought his wife and child to the place where he grew up. When he left the small plane, he was a man, a sword, and a brother. Now, he had a family. The change was so great that it made him feel emotional. Everyone came back in glory. If their clansmen were still alive, they would be so happy. Who? Yi Qinghan accompanied 9 Nether and the others for 2 days before walking out alone. He came to the Great Wasteland domain, which was already occupied by humans. Huang Peng had returned, but Yan Ao and the Dragon of Resentment were already dead. The Great Wasteland Palace hadn't been destroyed yet. Yi Qinghan sat on the Great Wasteland Palace, leaning against the wall. He looked at the stars and sighed, feeling sad and helpless. Yan Yu was killed in the secondary Saint realm. Yan Ao's body died in a place without laws and principles. If his body died, Yan Ao died as well. However, there was no other way. If he wanted to kill Yan Yu, he had to kill Yan Ao. When the Dragon of Resentment was in hell, its evil soul destroyed hell, causing it to be killed before it could reincarnate. Of the 3 experts that followed Yi Qinghan back then, 2 had died. How could he be happy? Hua. Wuxia. Huang Peng wandered around the Great Wasteland domain, but he didn't find anyone he knew. He could only return to Yi Qinghan's side. Boss, if there's a chance, you must revive Yan Ao and the Dragon of Resentment. Without them, I can't live freely. Huang Peng said in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan nodded and replied, yes, they will live. At least they can reincarnate. Chapter 3060. We will all survive. Yi Qinghan's tone was firm. Wasn't the reason why he was so determined to reach the final step. At this point, he couldn't give up no matter what the price was. Huang Peng, you don't have to participate in the final battle. Yi Qinghan whispered. Huang Peng was taken aback before he firmly said, Boss, I've fought with you for so long. I won't miss the final battle. Yi Qinghan shook his head and smiled, no, I don't have much confidence in surviving the final battle. The opponents are all virtuous paragons, anyone below the sage realm can't harm them. Let's travel the mortal world. Whether we win or lose, at least we can leave behind some seeds for Insane Mansion. I'll fight with Senior Flame King and the seniors from the 3rd planet. If Brother Monkey King, Brother Gu, and Brother Yan can become virtuous paragons or virtuous paragons, then that would be for the best. Boss, I've already given up on life and death. From the first day of the expedition, I've already given my life to you. I've been lucky to be alive until now. I hope that everyone from Insane Mansion can come back for the final battle. Virtuous paragons belong to the people, can they destroy everyone? Huang Ping firmly replied. Sigh, Yi Qinghan sighed. He had already made up his mind. From the moment he disbanded Insane Mansion, he would go alone and fight alongside the Flame King to reduce casualties. The older generation of Insane Mansion shouldn't participate. Even if they could hold back a virtuous paragon, he didn't want them to risk their lives. I'm going out for a walk. If I need anything, I'll come back and find you. Yi Qinghan whispered. Tell them to stay here and not come looking for me. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan distorted the void and directly left the great wasteland. He entered the 9 worlds of the past and looked at the ruins of the past. Things were still the same, but people had changed. Xue Fei was no longer here. Everyone who had interacted with her had died. Yi Qinghan's lips curled into a smile. That woman was very smart, but unfortunately, time didn't wait for her. She was born in a sad era. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan made his way through the 9 worlds. Half a day later, he entered Eternal World. Without Xikong Tanlang's control, Eternal World had reached the end of its civilization. It was no longer forcibly wiped out and its strength had risen greatly. Add the fact that it was under Yi Qinghan's control, the number of experts there was as high as the clouds. In the end, Yi Qinghan arrived at the ancient immortal world and met with the owner, Xianyuan Qingyun, Fan Yin, and Medusa. They didn't enter the minor planes because the people there didn't recognize them. After chatting for a while, he left the heaven-suppressing palace after spending some time with the ladies. Yi Qinghan exhaled and came to Gu Jiutian's valley. She was still guarding a grave by herself. She worked at sunrise and rested at sunset. She had a vegetable garden by herself. It was simple and boring, but she had gotten used to it and enjoyed it. Your Highness, I've reached the final step, so I came to see you. Yi Qinghan bowed slightly. Even though Gu Jiutian's cultivation was far behind him, Yi Qinghan was still indebted to her. Gu Jiutian was, after all, the first person Yi Qinghan helped after he appeared in the immortal world. Gu Jiutian's skin was fair and smooth. Even after being exposed to the sun and wind, she was still as beautiful as ever. With a smile on her face, she prepared a table of ordinary dishes. It's been a long time since I ate with someone. Eat with me, said Gu Jiutian with a smile. Yi Qinghan didn't refuse and sat across Gu Jiutian. Between them, there was only the purest form of friendship. There were no other thoughts. It's the last step. Be careful. I've watched you grow all this time. I didn't expect you to reach this step today. Gu Jiutian sighed softly. A melody like the sound of nature reverberated in the valley, exceptionally crisp. Yi Qinghan nodded and replied, yes. Thank you, Your Highness. The two of them drank a few cups of wine and ate a simple meal before Yi Qinghan bowed and left. On the mountain top, Yi Qinghan looked at the white-robed Gu Jiutian for a long time before he finally turned and left. Then, Yi Qinghan summoned Lu Feng and Chu Shi Junxian. I'll fulfill the promise I made to you. Even if it's not the immortal world, other secondary universes will do. Yi Qinghan looked at the two and said with a sigh. The two were already at the limit of the ancestor realm. Yan Yu and primordial Yin Yang had set up such a shocking plan, but it was all for the two of them. Lu Feng had completely submitted at this moment. He replied respectfully, Mansion Lord, there's no problem in letting me be the lord of a city. Let the promise from back then scatter with the wind. After fighting for so long and looking at the brotherhood of the Quang Mansion, I realized that what I pursued didn't make me happy at all. Chu Shi Junxian sighed softly. Now I understand why Father set up a trap to protect your growth. Mansion Lord Yi, I was wrong. If I had been smarter back then, Father wouldn't have died. Chu Shi Junxian was Chu Jun. No matter who was in charge, they both understood that it was lonely at the top. If they stood in Yi Qinghan's shoes, they might not have handled things so perfectly. Yi Qinghan smiled slightly. Seeing that the two of them had seen through it, he didn't say anything else. Yi Qinghan said calmly, "The two of you, I'm gratified that you have such a state of mind today. I'm sure Emperor Liang and the Taigu Emperor can rest in peace." Lu Feng bowed again and said, "If not for Mansion Lord's guidance, I wouldn't have achieved what I have today. I wouldn't have seen things so clearly." Pa! Yi Qinghan patted Lu Feng and Chu Shi Junxian's shoulders and said indifferently, "Everyone has their own destiny. From today onwards, you are members of Guangfu. When I'm done with the last step, we'll drink together. No one from Guangfu can be absent." "Thank you, Mansion Lord." Lu Feng and Chu Shi Junxian cupped their fists and replied at the same time. Yi Qinghan laughed heartily. No matter what grudges they had back then, they were all resolved now. Hua! Yi Qinghan left once again. He had visited so many people, but there was one person he had to leave for last. That was Jian Bugui. Jian Bugui was now used to living a carefree life. He accompanied his child and was proficient in the 4 arts. His righteous qi shrouded Jingfan Mountain and formed a large immortal sect. Yi Qinghan appeared in the training hall. Jian Bugui seemed to have been waiting for a long time. "You're here. Congratulations." Jian Bugui looked at Yi Qinghan and said indifferently. "What's there to congratulate?" Yi Qinghan asked in surprise. "You'll know in 1,000 years. You just can't see it now." Jian Bugui smiled and said, "Disbanding Guangfu is the most successful thing you've done in your life. The world will be glorious because of it. The original universe will acknowledge you." Yi Qinghan was stunned, but he quickly understood. The merits of Guangfu would eventually be credited to Guangfu. Every soldier of Guangfu would be loved by the world, but the one who would benefit the most was naturally the Mansion Lord. The one who would ultimately be acknowledged by the original universe would most likely be him. Chapter 3061. In the training ground of Jingfan Mountain, all the children had left the mountain to train. Only Jian Bugui and Yi Qinghan were left sitting across each other. Yi Qinghan hesitated for a long time. He rubbed his fingers together, not knowing what to say. Jian Bugui knew Yi Qinghan too well. When he was in this state, it meant that he had a favor to ask, but it wasn't easy to ask. Jian Bugui calmly said, "If you have something to say, just say it. I've told you before that if you have a problem, you can come to me. If I can help you, I will." Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "In the 9-star domain of the 3rd planet, virtuous Paragon Yuzun created the 9 divine cauldrons. They not only suppressed the laws of the 3rd planet, but also 9 virtuous paragons. These 9 virtuous paragons want to guard the original universe and replace the original virtuous paragons to control the universe. I want to revive some people, so I must kill or suppress these 9 virtuous paragons. However, I don't have the ability to do so. Even if I become a virtuous paragon, I might not be able to handle 9 virtuous paragons." Jian Bugui frowned. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan to be referring to the 9 virtuous paragons. If these 9 virtuous paragons are suppressed, why can't we just kill them? Jian Bugui asked in surprise. Yi Qinghan sighed softly and said helplessly, "The 9 paragons have received too much merit. Their inner worlds are almost comparable to the original universe, and there are many humans. In addition, there are also some people in the secondary universe who can't forget about them. As a result, they can't be killed, but the paragons of the 3rd planet will die." Unkillable virtuous paragons were terrifying existences. Jian Bugui caressed the hilt of the sword of no return in the center of the table. She had not used a sword for a long time. This sword of life had advanced along with her cultivation. Now, it was a very terrifying sword of sages. Once unsheathed, no one knew how much damage it could cause. Phew, Jian Bugui gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He nodded and said, "In the final battle, I will take action. Whether it is for the common people or for Master Zhang Fan, I should take action." Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief, nodded, and said, "If you can take action, the pressure will be much less. I'll go to the third planet to take a look and see if I can move these corpses away. We can revive them first or open up reincarnation." Jian Bugui nodded and said plainly, "I'll go with you." Yi Qinghan didn't refuse. During this trip to the primal universe, he would definitely be able to meet the paragons. Even if they were only corpses, he still needed to be careful since the slightest carelessness could result in death. The two of them left the crazy mansion Immortal Kingdom and entered the heaven-seeking realm. They traveled as fast as lightning, and they even saw Kuang Fu's soldiers in the original universe. Kuang Fu's army was scattered all over the secondary universe, but they did not enter the third planet. After several months, the two of them entered the secondary Saint Domain. Using the same method as before, Yi Qinghan and Jian Bugui went directly to Zhang Daoling's mortal world peak. Zhang Daoling looked at Jian Bugui and felt nervous. He didn't expect Jian Bugui's state of mind to settle so quickly. The first time he saw him, he couldn't use the power of the sage. Now, he could use some laws and principles in the mortal world. "Daoist, I didn't expect to see you again." Zhang Daoling bowed slightly. Jian Bugui bowed back and said, "Greetings, esteemed one." Yi Qinghan did not expect the two to know each other and said, "Since the two of you know each other, I won't introduce myself. I'm here this time because I hope to visit the other ancestors and see if I can move the 9 corpses to another place. First, I'll restore the Dharma and logos of the third planet, and then I'll unblock the cycle of reincarnation." Zhang Daoling shook his head. "Impossible. Virtuous Paragon, you suppressed them in the 9-star field because of the power of the original universe. Otherwise, they would have broken free long ago. Once they move to another place, the cauldrons won't be able to suppress them for long. How can we kill them?" Yi Qinghan couldn't help but frown. Zhang Daoling sighed. "If they could be killed, they wouldn't have exhausted Virtuous Paragon you to death. I don't know what can kill them, but I know that Virtuous Paragon Ho Yi's sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow can severely injure them. However, the bow went missing in that battle and was taken away by the universe's black hole. It hasn't reappeared since." Zhang Daoling said seriously. Yi Qinghan had never heard of the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow in the secondary universe. Could it have been destroyed by the black hole? Yi Qinghan had a bad premonition. If he could find this bow, then even if the 9 paragons came back to life, they would still be wary of this bow. No, the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow is a supreme treasure of the world. No one can destroy it. Even if it reappears, no one might be able to use it unless Ho Yi's descendants reappear. The bloodline connection might allow them to use this immortal bow. Zhang Daoling said firmly. Yi Qinghan asked in shock, "After so many years, you don't know if Virtuous Paragon Ho Yi still has descendants in the world?" Zhang Daoling helplessly replied, "That battle was at the end of the line and the original universe was about to be destroyed. After recuperating, everything changed. Not to mention Virtuous Paragon Ho Yi's descendants, even the descendants of the other ancestors have gone missing. They haven't been found yet." Yi Qinghan couldn't help but look at the void with a splitting headache. After so many years, where would he find Virtuous Paragon Ho Yi's descendants? And where would he find this immortal bow? What does the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow look like? Let me take a look, maybe there will be some clues. Yi Qinghan said seriously. There is a replica in the Jade Court Sacred Realm. Wait for me in the secondary sacred realm. I will go to the Jade Court to get it for you. Zhang Daoling immediately said. Whoosh! Whoosh! Jian Bugui took Yi Qinghan and left the mountain peak. Zhang Daoling flew even faster with a tattered umbrella and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The two appeared in the secondary sacred realm and silently waited for Zhang Daoling. A few days later, in the Jade Court sacred realm, the elderly lord frowned at Zhang Daoling and said in a deep voice, although this immortal bow is a replica, it still has boundless power. Especially when it leaves the original universe, it can destroy heaven and earth. It can't be easily reappeared. Master Elderly Lord, Qinghan can trust you. Moreover, we don't have much time left. The 9 cauldron array in the 9-star domain has already given several warnings. I'm afraid it won't be able to suppress it anymore. Zhang Daoling reminded him in a deep voice. Sigh, the elderly lord sighed. At this time, the dignified elderly lord, a sage, still couldn't do anything about this situation. I will go get it for you. Remember to instruct it not to casually activate the immortal bow. Otherwise, it could easily destroy a secondary universe. That would be a sin. The virtuous paragon who created this immortal bow would lose his fortune because of it. The elderly lord warned. Zhang Daoling nodded repeatedly. Whoosh! The elderly lord turned and left. About an hour later, he came back with an immortal bow wrapped in golden cloth. Even so, the immortal aura was still dense and suppressed people to the point that they couldn't use their strength. Zhang Daoling bowed and took the immortal bow. Although it was a replica, it still had power that even a sage couldn't compare to. Chapter 3062. Whoosh! After Zhang Daoling took the bow, the elderly lord waved his hand and took out a quiver. There were 9 arrows engraved with primordial runes capable of destroying the world and tearing apart the life order of the sages. It had never killed anyone since the beginning of the imitation, but its murderous aura was unbearable even for sages. The elderly lord solemnly said, "You should consider whether to give these 9 arrows to him or not. No one can resist their temptation. If the sages of the secondary universe see them, they will fight for them with thunderous force." Zhang Daoling held the bow with both hands while his fingers gripped the quiver. He was very nervous. After so many years, he had never been nervous when fighting sages, but now, he felt suffocated. If he could find the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow, the world would be within his reach. Zhang Daoling's voice trembled as he bowed and said, "This disciple will take his leave." The elderly lord waved his hand with a complicated expression. He had seen many betrayals and didn't dare to place all his hopes on Yi Qinghan. Once the trust was lost, both the primary and secondary universes would most likely perish. Zhang Daoling took the bow and quiver and quickly left the Jade Court. The second-level Saint Realm wasn't quiet. Many people from the secondary universes were here to replenish their supplies. Yi Qinghan and Jian Bugui quietly sat on top of a mountain, waiting for Zhang Daoling's arrival. Zhang Daoling didn't disappoint. He took the bow and quiver back to the second-level Saint Realm and found this mountain according to their previous agreement. Even though the bow was hidden, its aura was still there. Even at the second-level Saint Realm, it still had the aura of a virtuous paragon. This was definitely an immortal weapon that only virtuous paragons were qualified to use. Hiss! Yi Qinghan and Jian Bugui couldn't help but gasp at the same time. They looked at each other and stared at the bow. Zhang Daoling placed the bow in front of Yi Qinghan and warned in a serious tone, "Although this immortal bow is an imitation, it has the power to destroy the world. Few people in this world can stop this arrow. It can injure virtuous paragons, so it was personally made by a mortal emperor ancestor. These 9 arrows can also pierce through the original universe and kill people outside of the secondary universe. Do not use them carelessly or the sin of killing will be too great. It will even bring about karma upon the mortal emperor ancestor who created this immortal bow. Yi Qinghan's fingertips trembled slightly as he sucked in a breath of cold air. With a wave of his hand, he tore off the golden cloth. In a split second, light soared into the sky. The Dharma and logos that had been suppressed by the grand formation of the divine cauldron lost control. In an instant, at least thousands of eyes in the secondary saint territory turned to look in the direction of Yi Qinghan. Zeng zeng, Yi Qinghan subconsciously took a few steps back, not daring to look directly at the immortal bow. Jian Bugui also subconsciously moved the hilt of his sword. The sound of the sword whistling reverberated in the sky, shaking the heavens. At this time, the entire secondary saint territory was alarmed. This immortal bow definitely came from a virtuous paragon. Once activated, it could threaten a virtuous paragon. The moment the bow came out, Zhang Daoling bent his body at a 90-degree angle, not daring to show the slightest bit of blasphemy. This immortal bow seemed to have its own consciousness and began to restrain its aura, no longer stealing the prestige of the heaven and earth. Yi Qinghan carefully looked at this immortal bow. It was full of runes that he had never seen before. They were all used to support virtuous paragons and could instantly devour the power of a virtuous paragon. Because of this, ordinary virtuous paragons couldn't use this bow. Otherwise, they would be devoured without leaving behind a corpse. This immortal bow could kill both enemies and oneself. The body of the bow was crimson while the bowstring was sky blue. The 9 arrows were like burning flames, capable of stealing one's soul. This immortal bow was more than just as heavy as a star. This was the only difference between it and the Hou Yi bow. The Hou Yi bow wasn't as heavy, nor was it as sharp. It exuded killing intent. The Hou Yi bow looked very ordinary. Anyone could pick it up, but not just anyone could use it. It was also much more powerful than this immortal bow imitation. Yi Qinghan bowed and accepted the immortal bow. He gently pulled the bowstring, but it simply wouldn't budge. Even after using 30% of its power, the bowstring still wouldn't budge. 50% still didn't have much of a reaction. After 80%, the bowstring began to pull back slightly. However, one could feel that once the bowstring was released, even the stable space in this secondary saint territory would be destroyed. Zhang Daoling warned in a serious tone, "Don't act recklessly. This bow has never been used since it was born for war. Its murderous aura is too strong." Buzz. The bow began to react as the runes were activated. Yi Qinghan felt the power in his body involuntarily rushing towards the immortal bow. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan instinctively let go of the bowstring. Buzz! Whoosh! In an instant, the space in the secondary saint territory fluctuated abnormally. A crack was directly torn open and an arrow of energy shot into the distance. An entire mountain was razed to the ground. Fuck, if you had given me this immortal bow earlier, I wouldn't have had to deal with those sages from the secondary universe in fear. Yi Qinghan said in shock. Zhang Daoling shook his head and said, "If I had given it to you back then, you would have died long ago." Yi Qinghan was instantly speechless. This immortal bow was probably not something the previous him could use. "This immortal bow is for you to see, not to use," Zhang Daoling reminded. "This immortal bow is an imitation of the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow. Even the color is very similar. Therefore, as long as you find this bow, you can basically confirm that it's the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow." Hiss, Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and put the golden cloth back on the immortal bow. He casually handed it to Jian Bugui and said in a low voice, "Bugui, help me draw a portrait of this immortal bow. I want to spread out to the 3 major subworlds to find this bow." Zhang Daoling wanted to stop Yi Qinghan's actions. This immortal bow could not fall into the hands of others, especially experts from the secondary universe. Who knew that Yi Qinghan would directly give it to Jian Bugui, an existence comparable to a virtuous paragon? If Jian Bugui wanted to destroy the third planet, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors would not be able to stop him. Yi Qing Han, this immortal bow cannot leave your hands. Zhang Daoling said in a difficult manner. Jian Bugui smiled and casually returned the immortal bow to Yi Qing Han. He said lightly, I have already memorized the appearance of this immortal bow. I will be able to draw a portrait of it within 3 days. Jian Bugui was proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taught so many skills to so many children. Yi Qing Han had seen her portraits of Zhang Fan and himself. They were all very lifelike. He didn't need to think too much about giving them to Jian Bugui. The 3 arrived at the gathering area. Many experts from the secondary worlds gathered here to trade and replenish their supplies. The moment the 3 appeared, many bowed and retreated, not daring to interact with them. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this time, at least 5 experts came forward and cupped their fists. Heaven Conquest Camps Yuan Jing greets Mansion Lord. Assassin Legions Fei Long greets Mansion Lord. 4th generation Inner Sect Disciple Ling Chong greets Mansion Lord. They were either primordial emperors, half-progenitors, or progenitors. They could be found anywhere in the 3 subrealms or the primal universe. Yi Qing Han smiled, no need to be so polite, just call me boss. Right, wait here for me for 3 days. I need your help with something. Yuan Jing and the others were overjoyed. They didn't expect Yi Qing Han to mobilize them. The group quickly entered the building complex. Wow! People from Crazy Manor are so envious. How nice would it be if I could join them? You're not even fit to carry their shoes. Everyone was discussing. They only had respect and reverence for Crazy Manor. Unfortunately, Crazy Manor wasn't accepting people. They could only become their subordinates and form a relationship with Crazy Manor. Chapter 3063. Second-ranked Saint Realm, Inside an Inn. Jian Bugui looked at the immortal bow and drew the shape of the immortal bow from 4 different angles. According to Zhang Daoling's reminder, the colors of the sun-shooting immortal destroying bow should not be so bright. Hence, he used a dull color to draw the immortal bow. Yi Qing Han directly recorded the painting into a video. He casually made more than 10,000 copies and gave them to Yuan Jing, Fei Long, and the others. Tell everyone from the insane mansion to search the 3 subworlds. I want to find this immortal bow. If there is any news, inform me immediately. If it is in someone else's hands, buy it at a high price. Any price is acceptable. Yi Qing Han told Yuan Jing's group. Yes, boss, we will complete the mission. Yuan Jing's group bowed. After receiving the video, the group quickly left. The news spread like wildfire. This news didn't only spread among the insane mansion but also to everyone. Even the other sages knew that Yi Qing Han was looking for this immortal bow. However, only a few knew the significance of this immortal bow. The star-profound saint's eyes flashed with astonishment as he watched the video. This is an invincible weapon from the primordial battlefield, the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. Xing Xian immediately recognized the origin of this immortal bow because he had seen the battle by chance. Even though it was just a glimpse, it was enough to shock the heavens. A paragon weapon could excite the world. Obtaining this bow and using it was the same as conquering the world. Xing Xian sucked in a breath of cold air as he looked at the image. Greed filled his heart. If he could get his hands on the immortal's bow and use it, then the 3 great subworlds would be his. Yi Qing Han wouldn't be able to do anything to him, and wouldn't even dare to compete with him. Xing Mu, mobilize all the experts in the sacred ground to find this immortal bow. Don't tell anyone from the insane mansion, just tell me directly. The star-profound saint said with a serious tone. At the same time, the turtle ancestor also recognized the origin of this immortal bow. He wasn't afraid of any attacks. Even the shock waves of a paragon's attack might not be able to break through his defense, but this bow could instantly shatter his defenses. I'm the strongest defensive expert in this world. If I can obtain the strongest offensive immortal bow in this world, I'll be the strongest in this world. Sage Turtle Ancestor was extremely excited. He couldn't wait to find the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. However, he also understood that he might not be able to use such a divine weapon. A few days later, the world was in chaos. Adventurers came out one after another just to find the immortal bow. No matter which sage it was given to, they would receive endless wealth. If it was given to the Kuang Manor, they would definitely enjoy endless glory and wealth. Old monsters who hadn't appeared in the world for many years had all appeared. There were no sages, but they were all at the limit of the progenitor realm. Some of them were already past their prime, but this immortal bow had become their life-saving straw. If they could get the immortal bow and hand it over to the crazed manor, Yi Qing Han would owe them a huge favor, and it was very likely that they would be able to extend their lives. At this time, the people of the Kuang Manor began to form groups of 30 to 50 people. Some experts began to form new forces to help them find the immortal bow. Even if they couldn't rule the world, they would still be able to obtain the position of the older generation of the Kuang Manor. Mercenary groups could be seen everywhere in the 3 subworlds. They specialized in searching for dangerous places. This kind of treasure required great luck to find. No one knew where it was. It could be in the secondary universe, Qiu Tian realm, 9-star realm, or even the 3rd planet. There was no other choice but to rely on luck. Since luck was the only way, they could only rely on numbers. There would always be someone with heaven-defying luck. The remaining 5 sacred grounds mobilized their experts to search for this immortal bow. Yi Qing Han was overseeing the secondary universe. He was sitting in a palace with Zhang Daoling and Jian Bugui. Yi Qing Han firmly said, "As long as the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow is still there, we can find it." Zhang Daoling confidently replied, "Even virtuous paragons can't destroy this bow, so the black hole definitely can't. Now, we just need to see where it is." Jian Bugui reminded him, "Have you guys found the 3rd planet?" Zhang Daoling shook his head and said in a low voice, "I've searched all over the mountains but couldn't find it. It shouldn't be inside the 3rd planet. I've also searched 9-star realm many times but still couldn't find it. Right now, the most likely place is the secondary universe or Qiu Tian realm." Yi Qing Han fell into contemplation. He didn't participate in the war back then, so he didn't know where Ho Yi lost the bow. Zhang Daoling didn't know either. Yi Qing Han frowned and asked, "Do the other ancestors have any clues?" Zhang Daoling still shook his head. He would have told them if there were any clues. "I only know that in the last battle, Ho Yi went all out and joined forces with the other paragons to seriously injure 9 paragons. In the end, he was exhausted and was struck in the heart by a paragon's final struggle. Even his merit points were scattered. The explosion of 2 paragons formed a huge black hole in the 9-star domain and instantly destroyed all life in this place. The black hole then took away the sun-shot immortal vanquishing bow. Ho Yi's whereabouts are unknown, but one thing is certain, he is dead. His life card is completely shattered." Zhang Daoling helplessly said. No one knew where the man-made black hole led to or where it would dissipate. Perhaps the place where the black hole dissipated back then was where the sun-shooting immortal destroyer bow was. However, after so many years, it was very likely that it was buried underground or taken away by someone. However, its value was unknown and it was treated as a collection. Hiss. Hiss, Yi Qing Han took a deep breath. Looking for an immortal bow in the primal universe and the 3 secondary realms was no different from looking for a needle in a haystack. Buzz. Boom. At this time, a worldly phenomenon appeared again. The 9-star realm shone brightly and countless stars flashed, turning the night into day. The entire nine-star realm and even the secondary realms could see it. The moonlight was like water with a suffocating aura that radiated in all directions. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan rushed out of the palace and flashed into the third planet. At this time, he could see even more clearly. The 9 stars almost formed a line. The 9 cauldrons grand formation gave another warning. This meant that it could no longer suppress the 9 paragons. Yi Qinghan's fingertips trembled. He understood the strength of the 9 paragons. Jian Bugui was comparable to a paragon. She could mobilize the power of the primal universe and could render even the sages helpless. The power of the 9 paragons was unimaginable. Once they broke out of the formation, the third planet would be unstoppable. Their evil energy could destroy everything. Jian Bugui and Zhang Daoling appeared on both sides of Yi Qinghan and looked up at the 9-star realm. They knew that the real calamity was coming. It's over. Zhang Daoling lamented. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed with a cold glint as he gravely said, "It's too early to say that. Find the sun shooting immortal vanquishing Bao and Yan Emperor becoming a paragon. So what if the 3 kings and 5 emperors of the third planet are past their prime?" Chapter 3064. Zhang Daoling was pessimistic because he understood the power of the 9 paragons. Meanwhile, Yi Qinghan was like a newborn calf that wasn't afraid of a tiger. He felt that there was still a chance. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and said, "We must find the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing Bao before the 9-star alignment." There was still time to find the sun-shooting immortal destroying Bao. "Senior, you should go look for it yourself. I will personally lead Insane Faction. I hope there is still time," Yi Qinghan solemnly suggested. Zhang Daoling nodded. Even if he didn't want to, he had no other choice. Yi Qinghan looked at Jian Bugui and said, "Bugui, you are our last hope. Try your best to reach the virtuous paragon realm." Jian Bugui also felt the pressure. The visual phenomena in the sky were too obvious. The 9 paragons that were being suppressed could rush out at any moment. At that time, the world would be completely overturned. Soon after, the 3 split up. Yi Qinghan entered the primal universe alone and worked with the divine bird to search. At this time, the world was in chaos. Insane Faction had to step up to maintain order and forcefully ordered all the great powers not to use this opportunity to cause trouble. Otherwise, they would become enemies with Insane Faction. The sacred ground was also within the scope of this order. Fortunately, Amethyst Sage, Xiaoyu Sage, and Qian Yishue Sage weren't extreme people. As for the Turtle Ancestor and Star Profound Sage, they wouldn't dare to oppose Insane Faction before obtaining the Bao. Insane Faction's prestige was like the sun at noon. All living beings in this world respected Insane Faction from their bones. This type of worship and yearning gave birth to endless merit points. As the Insane Faction Lord, Yi Qinghan had endless merit points. However, his mental state had yet to stabilize. Otherwise, he would have reached the virtuous paragon realm soon. The merit points would only increase. Yi Qinghan could mobilize more power from the primal universe, making the search much easier. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi quickly traveled through the primal chaos origin. No one had ever been to this place before. Black holes were everywhere, and spatial cracks were everywhere. If the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing Bao was in a place like this, it would not have been obtained by others. Boss, these places can be devoured by the black holes at any moment. There are also black holes that can disappear in these places. We are truly trying our luck here. Supreme Sovereign Yi was also rather helpless. He was known as a little expert in treasure hunting, but he definitely could not hunt for treasures like this and look for specific treasures. The corners of Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched and his eyelids twitched. Time was of the essence, so there was no better way than this. Let's try our luck. As the saying goes, there's always a way out. What if we find it? Yi Qinghan said, pretending to be relaxed. Supremacy Yi shrugged and continued to move forward with Yi Qinghan. His divine sense swept across thousands of miles, crossing the galaxy. After searching for several months, they finally walked out of the danger zone and came to a slightly peaceful area. They actually found a large group of adventurers, and there were very few progenitor realm cultivators. They all relied on breathing apparatus to survive here. The purpose of these adventurers was not only to find the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow, but also some progenitor realm energy sources, even if they were of the lowest level. In the process of searching for treasures, they were also looking for the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow. If they could find the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow, it would be a windfall. Although the hope was slim, it did not stop them from daydreaming. There were men and women in the team, including the elderly and the younger experts. They supported each other. Some of them were experienced and knew where was safe and where was not. After searching for so long, Yi Qinghan was rather helpless. He could only follow the adventurers for a while to pass the time. Yi Qinghan acted low-key. He was equivalent to a peak Taigu emperor, so those people did not recognize him at all. On the other hand, Supreme Sovereign Yi Qinghan made a lot of noise. However, when others heard that they were the mansion master of Crazy Manor and Supreme Sovereign Yi, they scoffed and expressed their disbelief. The Manor Lord of the Insane Manor was a supreme existence. How could he be here? How could he be mingling with low-level adventurers like them? Impersonating the mansion master of Crazy Manor is a serious crime. Some time ago, I saw someone impersonating someone from Crazy Manor and committing crimes. However, I met a real person from Crazy Manor. That person killed more than 30 experts by himself. Blood flowed like a river. Even progenitor realm experts did not dare to act recklessly. If you impersonate the mansion master of Crazy Manor, you might implicate your entire family. An old man in the adventurers reminded in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan was speechless. He did not know what to say. On the other hand, Supreme Sovereign Yi said with a smug face, "My boss is real. Someone can impersonate the mansion master of Crazy Manor, but absolutely no one can impersonate me, Supreme Sovereign Yi." Whoosh! Whoosh! Supreme Sovereign Yi transformed into his original form and appeared on Yi Qinghan's shoulder. He smiled slyly and said, "Children, aren't you going to bow when you see the mansion master of Crazy Manor and this Supreme Sovereign?" The journey to the treasure hunt was especially boring. Yi Qinghan saw how Supreme Sovereign Yi was fooling around and did not stop him. However, when the group saw Supreme Sovereign Yi's behavior, they were even more skeptical. "Stinky birds, if you want to cause trouble, don't implicate us." A rather good-looking young woman in a phoenix coronet and robe warned with a stern face. Supreme Sovereign Yi looked embarrassed. He did not expect that the real him would be placed in front of everyone, but they did not believe him. Yi Qinghan shook his head and did not say anything more about his identity. He only asked for advice. "Everyone, do you have any insights on treasure hunting? If anyone can give me some useful advice, I will reward you with 100,000 ancestral roots." "TCH, even if I have, I can't tell you. 100,000 ancestral roots is indeed a lot, but if I can find the sun-shooting immortal destroying bow, would I need your 100,000 ancestral roots?" A young man said disdainfully. Whoosh! The young man took out a video. It was showing the 4 angles of the sun-shooting immortal destroying bow. His eyes lit up. "Sigh, this sun-shooting immortal destroying bow. Quickly run to me. I will definitely treat it as a treasure," the young man said as if he was daydreaming. Yi Qinghan gave a self-deprecating laugh and did not ask any more questions. He continued forward and found a relatively powerful adventurer group. There were several progenitors here, and they were extremely professional in finding treasures. They could even study black holes. They could roughly calculate the beginning and end of a black hole. This was somewhat impressive. This team is not bad. We can put them to good use, Yi Qinghan said seriously. The divine bird lay on Yi Qinghan's shoulder with a dejected expression. It no longer wanted to find the so-called sun-shooting immortal destroying bow. If it wanted to find the sun-shooting immortal destroying bow in the seeking heaven region, it would be better to stand somewhere and wait for it to appear. At this moment, in the crazy manor immortal kingdom, the older generation, second generation, and third generation of the crazy manor had all received a notice. Everyone gathered, and Jian Qinxue told them all the news she had received. My husband sent a message that we must find the sun-shooting immortal destroying bow within 1,000 years. Therefore, everyone will work harder. All the experts will lead a team. Even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground, we must find the immortal bow. In addition, we have sent a message to the world. Whoever obtains the immortal bow and offers it to the crazy manor will be rewarded with a portion of the sovereign's origin energy and 2 secondary universe territories. If they can provide useful information, they will be rewarded with a secondary universe territory and will be protected by the crazy manor forever, Jian Qinxue concluded. Chapter 3065. With great rewards, there will always be brave men. Even just providing useful information would allow one to become the overlord of a secondary universe. If one could directly offer up the sun-shooting immortal destroying bow, one would be able to obtain 2 secondary universes, as well as the energy of the origin of the ruler. This meant that one would become a sage. In addition to the eternal protection of Kuang Manor, such a temptation might not tempt the sages, but those below the sages, even the sages' sons would be tempted. Kuang Manor's older, second, and third generation experts had all left. Even the ancient massacre god had left for the various secondary universes, leaving behind only the most ordinary soldiers, all of whom were from Kuang Manor's celestial empire. Yan Emperor was the only expert left. Heaven-suppressing palace still had Emperor Yi and Bai Shaoxing. Medusa had left to search for the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow, but she was with Jian Qinxue, Green Lotus Sword Saint, and the others. No one other than the sages could defeat them. A few years later, Kuang Manor's men could be found in every corner of the 3 secondary realms and Qiu Tian domain. Yi Qinghan followed the team of adventurers. This team's treasure hunting skill was quite good, especially their ability to calculate the final destination of a black hole through its starting point. This was a skill that Yi Qinghan failed to learn along the way. Hua, Xiu. Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and appeared in front of the group. He looked at the 3 ancestor realm experts in the lead with a dignified expression. His hands were placed behind his back, and his aura was so oppressive that the ancestor realm experts almost stopped breathing. I am Yi Qinghan, Kuang Manor's Manor Lord. Greetings, said Yi Qinghan in a dignified manner. CSISI, the 3 old men sucked in a breath of cold air. Their eyes were full of doubt. Everyone in the world knew the name of the crazy Manor Lord, but not many people knew what he looked like. They all knew that he was a young man, but they didn't expect him to be so powerful. Yi Qinghan's chiseled face was very clear. It was 70% righteous and 30% evil. His aura of righteousness and killing intent coexisted. His black hair fluttered in the chaos. His hair fell to his shoulders. His eyes were like black holes that could steal one's soul. Do you have any proof? It was an old man with white hair. His strength couldn't be underestimated. He should be a core figure who roamed the Qiu Heaven region all year round and was especially knowledgeable about treasure hunting. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and the 7 feet of madness appeared in his hand, fusing with the divine bird in an instant. The might of the sages surged, and the laws and logos of the primal universe were lifted. Other than the Flame Emperor and Yi Qinghan, who else in the younger generation could do this? Whoosh! The group of experts and adventurers all bowed and cupped their fists. Greetings, Manor Lord of the Crazy Manor. We didn't know that the esteemed Lord was here. These people were somewhat excited. They never expected to bump into Yi Qinghan here, nor did they expect Yi Qinghan to take the initiative to look for them. The old man in the lead had white hair and a ruddy complexion. At this moment, he was also a little excited. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Greetings, Manor Lord Yi. To be able to interact with Manor Lord Yi today is the fortune of 3 lifetimes. I wonder what business Manor Lord Yi has with us. How did you find the black hole's starting point and where it dissipated?" Yi Qinghan asked curiously. This group of people never expected Yi Qinghan to ask such a question. This was their specialty. If everyone knew about it, how could they make a living in the future? Yi Qinghan saw that the group was somewhat hesitant, so he said bluntly, "Since it's not convenient for you to say, I'll ask something else. If you know that there was a black hole starting point many years ago, can you find where it dissipated? The general area is fine as well." The old man in the lead frowned and thought for a while. He then said in a low voice, "If not much time has passed and the heaven domain hasn't changed much, then we can find it. If too much time has passed and the heaven domain has changed much, then the chances of finding where the black hole dissipated are too slim." Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed, and he asked in a low voice, "So you're saying that there's still a chance of finding it?" "Theoretically, we can find it. However, we've never looked for such a difficult route," the old man in the lead said seriously. "Who?" Yi Qinghan exhaled a turbid breath and gestured with his hand, "Everyone, follow me to the heaven domain outside the 9-star domain. As for the reward, I'll give it to you until you don't want it." The dozen people were overjoyed. Who wouldn't want to join the Kuang Manor? This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Sure enough, the old man in the lead immediately bowed and said, "If Manor Lord Yi accepts us as members of the Kuang Manor and gives us the identity of a generation, we're willing to offer our treasure hunting skills, including the method to find where the black hole dissipated." Yi Qinghan frowned. The first generation of the Kuang Manor was the older generation. There were only a dozen or so people who had fought side by side for countless years and recognized each other. Not just anyone could become a member of the first generation. The first generation doesn't accept people. Even if I accept you, you won't be able to integrate into that circle. If possible, I can promise to give you the identity of a second-generation member, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Second generation. The old man in the lead clearly wasn't satisfied with this identity. Their cultivation and strength weren't bad. The second-generation members of the Kuang Manor were all juniors. Yi Qinghan said indifferently, "The second-generation members I'm talking about are the outer elders. I'm not talking about the second-generation disciples of the Kuang Manor. However, your status will definitely be recognized by everyone in the Kuang Manor and the world." More than a dozen adventurer teams looked at each other and nodded without hesitation. "This old man is Sun Ning. Greetings, Manor Lord. This old man is Shuiyang. Greetings, Manor Lord." Everyone bowed and introduced themselves. Yi Qinghan noted down their identities one by one, then took them away and sped away from the 9-star domain. This was the final location of the great battle. It was because it was too close to the 9-star domain. If not for the fact that this was the foundation of the origin universe, the 9-star domains might have been destroyed. Sun Ning looked at this place in shock and said with a trembling voice, "Manor Lord, you're talking about the black hole created by the battle of the ancient virtuous paragons? You want me to use this place to find the place where the black hole dissipated?" Yi Qinghan nodded and said seriously, "Yes." Sun Ning almost despaired. How many years had it been? How could they possibly find the traces of the past? "Manor Lord, with the passage of time, the traces of the past have long since disappeared. Even if this old man had the ability to reach the heavens, I still wouldn't be able to find the place where the black hole dissipated. The reason why the cooperation of the 10 of us became famous is because we thoroughly understood the fundamental order of the seeking heaven domain. This place is like a rock stratum. There will be a special rock stratum in every era. What we can understand is the Seeking Heaven domain rock stratum formed in recent years, which is the fundamental order of the Seeking Heaven domain. You want us to find the fundamental order of the ancient era? This is too difficult for us. Sun Ying smiled bitterly. Yi Qinghan said helplessly, give it a try. It's best if you can find it, but if you can't, I won't blame you. Chapter 3066. Faced with Yi Qinghan's request, Sun Ying and the others had no choice but to give it a try. The fundamental order of the heaven domain was not the order of laws, but traces that could be followed. This was something that could only be sensed through years of experience and intuition. It was not something that could be sensed just because one's cultivation was high. Even if Sun Ying and the others told Yi Qinghan about the technique, he would still be clueless. Sun Ying and the others followed the current traces to find the traces of the past. They were very blurry, almost non-existent. However, they still relied on their many years of experience to forcefully push forward countless kilometers, arriving at a region that humans had never entered before. This region was even more dangerous than the previous ones. Sun Ying and the other experts could no longer continue forward. They could only rely on Yi Qinghan to lead them forward. The further they went, the more dangerous and difficult it became. The black holes were densely packed, erasing all traces of the past. Sun Ying and the others were powerless to reverse the situation. Manor Lord, this is the only place we can find. Logically speaking, we should be able to find some traces if we go all the way in. However, it's too dangerous. We can't do anything about it, Sun Ying said in a low voice. Yi Qinghan looked into the distance. It was true that the progenitor realm could not go any further. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and handed over more than 10 tokens of the crazy manor. He said indifferently, go back the way you came. I'll go deeper and take a look. Perhaps I'll find something. Yes. Sun Ying and the other experts all retreated from the dangerous area. Along the way, although Sun Ying and the others helped Yi Qinghan lead the way, they also found some strange treasures. They were all high-grade refining materials that were naturally born in the chaos and were priceless. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan shuttled through the dangerous land of primordial chaos, avoiding the chasms and crevices. The bottomless ravines were filled with energy that could erupt at any time, capable of devouring everything. It was a chilling sight. Even though Yi Qinghan's cultivation was heaven-defying, he did not dare to casually enter such a place. He could only take a detour. High-grade refining materials could be seen everywhere, but they were all snatched away by him. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, chaotic astral winds wreaked havoc, blowing so hard that their souls were about to explode. Black holes could appear at any moment in the unstable space. Yi Qinghan was extremely nervous. Little white clouds were attached to every corner of his body. His head was completely relying on its own strength to defend itself. Every step he took caused him to tremble slightly. Whoosh! Boom! The space was filled with cracks, and a black hole suddenly appeared beside him, swallowing up endless matter and energy. The energy inside the black hole was even stronger than the devouring power of the sea. Yi Qinghan was careless and was sucked into the black hole. His body was almost torn apart. If it wasn't for little white clouds' protection, he would have been minced meat by now. He tried his best to get out, but the power of the black hole was not something he could fight against. All of his power was protecting his head. Light shone brightly as he shuttled through the black hole. At this moment, he could only rely on his will to fight against the black hole. If he lost, he wouldn't even have the chance to breathe. Inside the black hole, there was only the sound of energy exploding. There was no other sound, not even the wind. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan was like duckweed in the middle of a stormy sea. He was being pulled deeper and deeper into the black hole. At this point it was impossible to escape. Inside the black hole, there was no light or darkness. Everything was silent. Yi Qinghan looked around but couldn't see anything. He closed his eyes and tried to sense the laws of order here, but he couldn't sense anything either. Whine. The black hole's crazy tearing caused his head to be hit by the energy waves. His soul was buzzing, and he almost fainted. I can't give up, Yi Qinghan growled. His soul was rapidly gathering as he forced himself to wake up. There was no concept of time here. Perhaps time didn't even pass in the black hole. After an unknown amount of time, the tearing force disappeared. Yi Qinghan was thrown into the distance by a force. Yi Qinghan suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the large piles of rocks in the void. It was like a garbage dump. There were all sorts of things here, corpses, broken soldiers, and broken mountains. They were all brought here by the black hole. However, the black hole wasn't able to decompose everything. Some things were preserved, but the value of these things was unimaginable. These undecomposable materials had been abandoned here by the black hole. He didn't know where this place was, but there was a large planet nearby. Therefore, this place wasn't in the dark. A faint light enveloped this garbage dump. There was a mountain of all sorts of materials, and he could even see a few corpses. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan leaped and appeared in the mountain. The mountain was mostly made of chaos materials and was extremely hard. Upon closer inspection, the corpses didn't belong to humans at all. They were primordial chaos creatures. Some were relatively large, while others were very thin. They weren't much bigger than humans, but their bodies were covered in wounds. They had probably been killed by the black hole. In the end, they couldn't be decomposed and were abandoned here. Yi Qinghan wouldn't have believed that such things existed in the primal universe if others had told him about them. But he had no choice but to believe it when he saw it with his own eyes. Hiss, Yi Qinghan drew a cold breath as he felt the roots of his teeth ache. Whoosh! The divine bird separated from Yi Qinghan and looked at the garbage mountain. The corners of its mouth trembled. So many treasures. The divine bird cried out excitedly. Yi Qinghan was especially vigilant. He held his saber and constantly climbed up. The higher he stood, the further he could see. There were many floating objects around him that emitted light. He couldn't store anything here in his interspatial ring. His interspatial ring was of a very high level, but in front of these materials, the difference in level was too great. It's a pity that I can't take away the good stuff, Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. The divine bird stumbled and found a relatively small stone to store in its bosom. Yi Qinghan frowned as he looked around. He was indeed interested in the items here, but he wanted to see if there were any living creatures around. Shoo! Yi Qinghan used the floating forces in the area to leap up and appear on the corpse of a massive chaos creature. The corpse had no signs of life. It had been dead for countless years, and its skin had already turned to stone. It was so hard that even heavy frenzy couldn't leave a mark on it. Boom! 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 Yi Qinghan used heavy frenzy to strike the corpse's back. It took him a lot of effort to shatter a layer of rock, revealing the corpse's true appearance. It was like a creeping void creature. Its fangs were as sharp as knives. Despite being dead for countless years, they were still extremely powerful. Whoosh! Hum! Yi Qinghan slashed at the eerie fangs, hoping to cleave them down and take them away, but when he struck the fangs, he was instantly sent flying. Heavy frenzy nearly slipped out of his hand. Hiss! Hiss! Yi Qinghan grimaced. His right hand was sore, and the web between his thumb and index finger had nearly split open. Holy shit, what the hell is this creature? Yi Qinghan looked at the behemoth in front of him in shock. Just one of its fangs was half the height of a person. If he could take it down and polish it for a period of time, it would be a true killing weapon. Chapter 3067. Yi Qinghan was stunned by the creature that had been dead for many years. Even after being dead for so long, the laws and logos of order in its body had not dissipated. After the baptism of the black hole, its corpse still made the sages despair. After that, Yi Qinghan and the divine bird merged again and attacked together. They even used the power of the original universe. At that moment, the energy between heaven and earth surged. Even the trash mountain was shaking. The blade crossed the star field and came from the endless wilderness, slashing hard at the longest fang. Boom! Bang! Hua! Hua! The aftermath shook the mountains and rivers. The entire trash mountain was shaken and moved back a few meters. However, the trash mountain was too big, and the material inside was special, so it was almost negligible. Flames shot out from the collision between the fang and the heavy force, making an ear-piercing sound. Yi Qinghan frowned. His soul was almost shattered. Xiao! Boom! Yi Qinghan flew back to the trash mountain. He covered his ears with both hands. Blood flowed out of his orifices, and his eyes were on fire. Fuck, this thing, I'm going to take it. Yi Qinghan looked at the shaking fang. When the tearing sound faded, he took to the air again. Boom! Another slash. Yi Qinghan didn't know exhaustion. After countless strikes, his face was covered in blood and the web between his thumb and forefinger was cracked. But in the end, he managed to break the fang. It was about a meter long. After polishing and tempering it and adding a handle, it would definitely become one of the sharpest daggers or short swords. Yi Qinghan held the fang. It was not heavy, but it was extremely sharp. Even the heavy force was tired. There were dozens of notches on it, and it would break at any time. However, he did not care. He would use this treasure in the future. Hua! Yi Qinghan took out a battle robe and tore it into a bag. Then he put the fang in the bag and carried it on his back. He continued to search the trash mountain. Rocks as heavy as stars were lifted and thrown to the side. About 20 hours later, the light in this place became even brighter. It was as if it had been night before, and now it was daytime. After the view was restored, Yi Qinghan quickly dug through the trash mountain. Pieces of true treasure materials were thrown into the void and floated away with the energy. For several months, the two of them had searched through the trash mountain. They found some terrifying treasures, all of which were refining true treasures. There were even 3 godly weapons that had not been destroyed, but they had fallen into a deep sleep. One of them was a green sword. When it moved gently, it was like a gentle breeze. It looked ordinary, but it had a majestic aura. It stood there like a great scholar, full of wisdom. Although it was not human, it had a temperament that no human could possess. It was refined, gentle, and generous. However, if one looked closely, they would find that the sword's edge was covered in runes. It seemed to be sealing the edge of the sharp sword. The other was a spear. The entire spear was engraved with runes that had never been seen before. This was the weapon most commonly used during the primordial era. Moreover, most of them came from the military. It was filled with hostility and slaughter all year round. The difference between this spear and the green sword was like heaven and earth. One was positive while the other was negative. The green sword made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. It was very comfortable to look at, just like a work of art. On the other hand, this spear was eerily red. It was cold and chilling, causing people to shudder. They felt as if this spear was going to pierce their hearts. It was suffocating. The last item of the primordial chaos was a book. It was an extremely ancient book. Yi Qinghan did not pay attention to the spear or the green sword. Instead, he stared at the book. There were no words on the book's cover. Yi Qinghan rubbed his nose and subconsciously flipped to the first page. He was stunned by the unique words on it. He was certain that he had never seen such words before. However, the corresponding words automatically appeared in his mind. The words here looked like hieroglyphs, but they weren't completely hieroglyphs. They were very difficult to understand, but for some reason, Yi Qinghan could roughly guess what they were describing just by looking at the words at the top. 10-arrow technique. Yi Qinghan looked at the first page. Other than these 3 words, there was nothing else. There was not even a picture of a bow. Hua. Yi Qinghan was filled with curiosity and thirst for knowledge as he flipped to the second page. When he saw the picture, he was stunned on the spot. Hiss, this is the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. Yi Qinghan nearly jumped up. The picture on it was definitely the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. Apart from some very minute details, the bow on the picture was almost identical to an immortal bow. Hua. Yi Qinghan directly took out the immortal bow from his body. He did not return it to Zhang Daoling. At that moment, he could completely tell the difference between the imitation and the real sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. There are clearly only 9 arrows. Why is it called the 10-arrow technique? Yi Qinghan rubbed his nose and muttered to himself. Smack! Supreme martial artist Yi suddenly appeared from behind and slapped Yi Qinghan's back. Boss, have you not realized what's going on? The discovery of the 10-arrow technique here means that virtuous sage Ho Yi's corpse has been swept here. Will the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow be swept in with him? Why are you thinking about why it's called the 10-arrow technique? Has your brain been kicked by a donkey? Smack! Yi Qinghan closed the ancient 10-arrow technique and clapped his hands. He shouted, right, how could I forget about this? Hua! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and put the spear and sword on his back. He continued to search around, hoping to find virtuous sage Ho Yi's body. It would be best if he could find the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. Help me search, maybe we can find it. It should be nearby. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was finally excited. He had finally found a trace of the 10-arrow technique. As long as he could find the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow, would he still be afraid of virtuous paragons? There were floating objects everywhere in the vast land of chaos. Any one of them would provoke the sages of the sacred grounds to fight over them. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan didn't care about them. The main reason was that he couldn't take them away. After all, they were heavy and big and couldn't fit into his ancestral ring. Hua! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi worked together to search in 2 directions. They didn't even let go of the back of the chaotic meteors. Their divine senses spread out and enveloped every part of the mountain. However, after searching for dozens of days, they didn't find Ho Yi's body or the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow. Yi Qinghan looked into the distance. If they went any deeper, they would reach a place where even sages couldn't survive. There was nothing there. Just like the 9-star domain, there was no law or order. Moreover, it was very thorough and clean. There wasn't even any energy. Could it have floated into the depths? Yi Qinghan said in despair. Sovereign Ye's shoulders drooped as he looked into the depths. He said helplessly, Boss, why don't we just let it go? Let it go. Yi Qinghan shook his head helplessly and turned to look back. He saw a huge chaotic creature's corpse floating toward him. Its huge claws seemed to be holding something. His eyes couldn't help but brighten. At the end of the road, there was a glimmer of hope. Yi Qinghan's figure flashed as he charged towards the corpse of the massive chaos creature. Chapter 3068. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed and appeared below the corpse of the chaos creature. Although the corpse was lying in the void, Yi Qinghan's feet weren't even as big as the corpse's claws. The most important thing was that it was still holding a human corpse in its claws. The corpse was in a golden battle robe and had a jade belt. The corpse was not damaged, and the claws were half retracted, as if it was protecting the corpse before it died. The man looked to be in his 40s and had been dead for countless years. He was still very much alive, but the robe on his chest was shattered along with his heart. He was no longer breathing. Hiss, Yi Qinghan and Supreme Yi both took a deep breath. They felt that this was Hou Yi's body that they were looking for. Is this Chaos Beast Sage Hou Yi's mount? Yi Qinghan asked in shock. Supreme Yi knew nothing about this place and even less about virtuous paragons, so he could only make guesses. Yi Qinghan was the same. The two stared at each other, not knowing what to do. Yi Qinghan pondered for a bit and said in a deep voice, "Stabilize the beast's claw. I'll take the corpse out and study its identity." Sovereign Yi did not hesitate and grabbed the beast's claws with both hands. Yi Qinghan carried the corpse out. He could not tell its identity from its battle robes and accessories. Finally, he looked at the saint's ring of cosmos on the corpse. There were obvious cracks on the ring, but it wasn't completely shattered. At this time, Ultimate Saint of Thieving Heaven Space 9 level profundity played a crucial role. Let's go. This saint's ring of cosmos is of a very high level. The space inside is like a different world. Perhaps we can find some clues. Yi Qinghan had a glimmer of hope. He wanted to investigate the true identity of the corpse. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan merged with Supreme Yi and controlled the Space 9 level profundity. His figure flashed and directly entered the Saint's Universe Ring. The Saint's Universe Ring was vast and boundless, like a universe where humans could live. The dense forest was more than 100 meters tall. There were mountains, rivers, clouds, and hundreds of birds flying in the sky. What was even more exaggerated was that there were high-level beasts here that were almost at the progenitor realm. This was a world of its own, an independent world. Yi Qinghan and Sovereign Yi separated once more. Apart from the brightly colored snake that was refining the sovereign's energy, even the little golden crow and the startwining vine came out. They roamed about in search of clues. Several hours later. Screech! With a long cry, the eagle soared into the sky. The god-devouring eagle was giving out a warning. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan and Supremacy Yi moved toward the god-devouring eagle almost at the same time. At this moment, the god-eater eagle transformed into a human and looked at the pile of firewood and the burnt wooden sticks. According to the time, the person who started the fire had left less than half a month ago. This meant that there was someone living in the sage's ring of cosmos. At this moment, Yi Qinghan, Supreme Sovereign Yi, and the others all came to the side of the god-devouring eagle. They looked at the pile of ashes and were wild with joy. If we find this person, we'll have an 80% chance of confirming the identity of this corpse, Yi Qinghan said as he pointed at the ashes. The space in this ring of cosmos was not small. It was equivalent to the size of a subrealm. There should be more than one person. Split up and search. Immediately warn us when you find him, Yi Qinghan said after a moment of silence. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Whoosh. In an instant, Supremacy Yi and the other spirit pets left. Even the little white fox ran out. They were evenly matched in this space. They traversed the sky and looked down at this space. In fact, there was more than one tribe. However, they were all very far away. They were either deep in the mountains or located on cliffs. Waterfalls stretched across the clouds and fell from the sky. Yi Qinghan searched for a few days and finally found a huge tribe in a valley. He did not know when this tribe existed. It might have existed before the death of the virtuous paragon. Whoosh! Whoosh! The god-devouring eagle, the star-twisting vine, Supreme Sovereign Yi, and the little white fox gathered outside the valley. The tribe's defense was very good. They must have been attacked by fierce beasts all year round. When we go in later, keep a low profile. There's definitely more than one tribe here. We can pretend to be people from other tribes. If we can find clues, we'll leave immediately. We won't disturb the progress of their civilization, Yi Qinghan said calmly. The god-devouring eagle was very low-key. However, Supreme Sovereign Yi could not be low-key anywhere. As for the little white fox, her beauty was rare in the world. In addition, following Yi Qinghan's advancement, she continued to advance and became one of the few female Taigu emperors. The group stepped into the valley. The valley was more beautiful than a fairyland. The bottom of the river could be seen clearly. There were fish playing in the weeds on both sides. The fortifications were right in front of them. Yi Qinghan and the others were discovered as soon as they stepped in. Whoosh! Whoosh! Boom! In a split second, a few whistling arrows came from the sky. They exploded high up as if to warn them. Whoosh! In an instant, at least 100 big men were in position. They held divine crossbows and aimed at Yi Qinghan. Who are you? An angry roar resounded through the sky and echoed in the valley. The language was not the common language of the secondary universe. It was the language of the 9-star domains of the original universe. Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and said, I'm on my way from another tribe and passed by here. I hope you can stay here for a few days. This fortification was to guard against wild beasts, not against people from other tribes. After confirming that Yi Qinghan was not hostile, the door was opened. Which tribe are you from? Why haven't I seen you before? A big man stood at the door and asked curiously. Yi Qinghan immediately smiled and said, I'm from a very remote area. This is my first time out for training. I want to travel around, but I don't have much experience. I've used up all my supplies, so I want to come to your precious land to replenish my supplies. Oh, no wonder. Little brother, are you going to the Ishan realm to explore? The big man nodded and asked. Yi Qinghan was startled. He scratched his head and pretended to be an ignorant country bumpkin who had never seen the world. He asked in a simple and honest manner, I've always heard of the Ishan realm. However, I don't know where it is. The big man looked at Yi Qinghan and his entourage. He was a little suspicious. How could someone who had a beauty like Little Baihu be an idiot? He didn't even know where the Ishan realm was. Was this a joke? You're not from a nearby tribe. Who are you? The big man asked cautiously. Yi Qinghan looked at Little Baihu, Supreme Being Yi, and the others. He had acting skills, but these guys didn't. Sigh, Yi Qinghan sighed softly and could only tell the truth, fellow Taoist, there's no need to be nervous. I don't have any ill intentions. I came from the outside world and just wanted to investigate where this place is. The big man frowned and looked at Yi Qinghan. He didn't seem to believe Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan wasn't sure if this corpse was the body of Ho-I or a virtuous paragon from the secondary universe. Therefore, he didn't dare to speak carelessly and could only beat around the bush. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan waved his hand and took out 2 pieces of progenitor realm origin energy of good quality. He said lightly, fellow Taoist, if you can tell me where the Ishan realm is, these 2 pieces of progenitor realm origin energy are yours. Chapter 3069. Money makes the world go round. As long as the resources were in place, the people here didn't care who Yi Qinghan was. The burly man didn't hesitate to take the ancestral energy source and said faintly, Ishan world is a world created by God Father. It's called Ishan world. This is a space abandoned by God Father and is connected to Ishan world. The node is over 3,000 miles east of here. There's an even bigger tribe there and most of them are people from Ishan world. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed and he muttered to himself, Ishan world, is it the inner world of Hoi virtuous paragon? His inner world is connected to his own universe ring and one can enter Hoi virtuous paragon's inner world from the universe ring? Is the sun shooting immortal exterminating bow in Ishan world? Is there a descendant of Hui virtuous paragon in Ishan world? He had too many questions, but everything could be easily solved once he found Ishan world. I'll ask one more question and I hope Dao friend can answer truthfully. Yi Qinghan pondered for a while before looking up at the burly man and said, "Who is the godfather you're talking about?" The burly man shook his head and said, "How can Godfather's name be tarnished?" Hua. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and the immortal bow appeared in his hand. His aura instantly erupted. Hiss, hiss, the burly man retreated dozens of steps and knelt on the ground in fear. He didn't dare to look up. The Godfather you're talking about, is it the person holding the immortal bow? Yi Qinghan asked in a deep voice. Yes, yes, the great Godfather might have disappeared for many years but he still lives in our hearts. The burly man knelt on the ground and glanced at the immortal bow in Yi Qinghan's hand. It was almost identical to the one on Godfather's statue. He revered that immortal bow. Who? Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. At this moment, he could confirm that the corpse was indeed Hui virtuous paragon. I've searched high and low for it, only to find it by chance. Perhaps the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing bow is in his inner world. Yi Qinghan excitedly lifted his foot and left, heading east. It was just over 1,500 kilometers. Yi Qinghan casually kept the other spiritual pets into his body, only bringing along Supremacy Yi and the little white fox. The immortal bow was also already in his body. With a flash of his figure, he appeared outside the Great Eastern Tribe. This was the place where the space of the Qian Kun Ring and the space of Ishan Realm intersected. It was also the only place where one could enter Ishan Realm. Therefore, there were many people gathered here, and all of them had decent cultivation bases. Yi Qinghan didn't alert these people and directly entered Ishan world through the node. The moment he entered the Ishan Realm, he was enveloped by an overwhelming aura and bathed in immortal light. This was Yi Qinghan's first time entering the inner world of a virtuous paragon. Sure enough, it was countless times larger than his wild martial world. The laws and principles were even more stable and did not lose out to the original universe by much. Its area was also incomparably vast and immeasurable. Hui had been dead for so many years, but the world in his body still operated according to a specific order. It was evident that this world in his body was equivalent to a complete universe. Hiss hiss hiss, Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and whispered, "A virtuous paragon is indeed a virtuous paragon. This Ishan realm is even more stable than a secondary world. Wow, this is simply a place with good feng shui." The little white fox looked at the magnificent waterfall in front of her and couldn't help but spread out her arms and sighed. The water of the waterfall spilled down and drifted far away. Very quickly, some water droplets gathered on Yi Qinghan's face. "Let's go to the main city first and see if there are any inheritors left behind by Hui," Yi Qinghan whispered. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! Yi Qinghan took the little white fox and Supremacy Yi and left through the sky. There were tribes everywhere, and they could see huge vicious creatures hunting in the forest. Yi Qinghan didn't pay attention to these. Instead, he increased his speed and rushed towards the depths of Ishan realm. He passed through several tribes and found that the ancestor they were worshipping was the same person. It was Hui who held the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow. Most of the people in the tribes didn't have much cultivation. Even if they were the descendants of Hui and had the sun-shooting immortal exterminating bow, they still couldn't help Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan wanted to find a true peerless expert who was 100% compatible with the immortal bow. Once he got his hands on the bow, he would become one with the bow. However, this kind of person wasn't easy to find. After continuously traveling for several months, he finally found a main city. It was a gathering place for humans, and experts were as common as clouds. The imperial city was majestic and had stood for countless years without falling. There was a huge statue erected outside the main city. It was still the statue of Hui. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan was travel-worn and finally appeared outside the city. His eyes were full of radiance. How good would it be if the sun-shooting immortal exterminating Bao was here? It would save me a lot of trouble. Yi Qinghan sighed. Supremacy Yi rolled his eyes and pointed with his little finger. He said, whether it's here or not, we'll know once we enter the city. Since they are worshipping Ho-I, it means that their history isn't broken. They still have some understanding of the sun-shooting immortal exterminating Bao. The little white fox pulled Yi Qinghan's arm and hopped into the main city. She looked around and was very curious about everything. The main city was noisy. The large-scale war was very far away from here, but the small fights were endless. Let's go to the tea house and rest for a while. Let's see if we can find out some information. Yi Qinghan said calmly. The three of them walked side by side and quickly entered an elegant tea house. There were many people in the tea house. All of them were travel-worn and the tiredness on their faces was very obvious. They came here to adjust their tired souls and find out some useful information. Yi Qinghan ordered a pot of the best tea and sipped it silently. Supremacy Yi, on the other hand, was restless and turned his head around. His shifty eyes kept moving around as if he was a thief. Can you not use such an expression? The little white fox reminded him in a low voice. Look around. Everyone is guarding against us like we're thieves. Isn't it embarrassing? Supremacy Yi rolled his eyes immediately. His shoulders drooped as he said weakly, it's so boring here. It's so lifeless. It's not like the secondary universe at all, where a fight breaks out at the slightest disagreement. Yi Qinghan couldn't help but groan. This might have something to do with one's state of mind. Supremacy Yi's state of mind was far inferior to Yi Qinghan's. Right at this moment, the originally depressing tea house suddenly became lively. An old man holding a cattail leaf fan ran in. He was very sloppy, but the people in the tea house didn't dislike him. Old Bao, is there any good news this time? Everyone asked excitedly. Yi Qinghan also subconsciously looked at that sloppy old Bao. His cultivation wasn't very high. He hadn't even reached the Taigu Emperor's realm. One thing has been confirmed. The sacred land has sent news again. 3 years later, the Yishan mountain will open its doors to the world. Whoever is chosen by Father will be baptized by Father's bloodline and can learn the first 5 styles of the 10-arrow technique. Old Bao said excitedly. Yi Qinghan's eyes flashed and his fingertips subconsciously clenched. There really is a direct descendant of Ho-I here. I just don't know if the sun-shooting immortal vanquishing Bao will also be on the Yishan mountain. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and secretly muttered to himself. Chapter 30-70. This old Bao should be in charge of collecting information. His information was much faster than the others. At this time, old Bao opened his mouth again. Yishan mountain opens its grace ceremony every 10,000 years. As long as one is enveloped by the light of Father God, he will become the successor of Father God. Each time, only one successor will be born. Once one becomes the successor of Father God, one can enjoy endless glory, splendor, wealth and rank. Yi Qinghan stared at old Bao and thought, maybe I can get some useful information from his mouth. On the side, more than 10 people were discussing about the Yishan Shan. They more or less obtained some useful information. Yi Qinghan listened carefully and didn't let go of any useful information. However, no one mentioned the sun-shooting immortal destroying Bao. Even the descendants of Ho-I rarely mentioned it. However, they did mention a very important piece of information. The Yishan Shan was very xenophobic because after so many years, Yi Qinghan was definitely not the first person to arrive at this place. Moreover, if one was able to enter the Yishan Shan alive, then they would certainly be in existence between the sage and virtuous paragon. Their strength was extraordinary. Once they entered this place, they would inevitably have a conflict with the Yi Shan. Since the fall of virtuous paragon Ho Yi until now, there were a total of 2 outsiders who entered this place. Each time, there would be a torrential rain of blood and countless casualties. Therefore, the Yi Shan hated outsiders very much. Huff, Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. If he stated his intention, would the people of the Yi Shan fight to the death with him? It seems like I still need to find a suitable identity. Yi Qinghan rubbed his chin. Looking at the clothes of these people, there were some differences between them and his. It was just that these tired people didn't care. Moving at will, Yi Qinghan's clothes changed silently. There was not even the slightest movement. As for Supreme Yi Qinghan, he and Yi Qinghan's hearts were connected. At this moment, he was also changing his own clothes. Little White Fox was a girl, so there was no need for her to change anything. After all, women were always trendsetters. About an hour later, the burly men were almost done with their discussion. Some of them had already stood up and left, but old Bao did not leave. He turned his head to look at Yi Qinghan from time to time. He was best at observing people's expressions and probing for information. Yi Qinghan had been looking at him all this time, so it was impossible for him not to feel it. Whoosh! Old Bao walked over with a smile. Fellow Taoist, you look unfamiliar. I've wandered the Divine E realm for so many years, but I've never seen you before. I wonder if there's anything I can help you with? Old Bao asked with a smile. Old Bao had a thorough understanding of human nature. One would not slap a smiling person. Yi Qinghan smiled and gestured with his hand, fellow Taoist, please take a seat. This is my first time here, and it's my first time going out to train. I would like to consult some old misters. I hope you won't be stingy with your guidance. After saying that, Yi Qinghan pushed out a piece of top-grade Ancestor Realm source energy and placed it in front of old Bao. He said indifferently, as long as old Mister can help me clear up my doubts, this is just a small matter. Old Bao's eyes lit up. What he lacked the most was this kind of rare Ancestor Realm source energy. He usually relied on information to exchange for resources, so his gains were limited. This was definitely the first time he had seen someone as generous as Yi Qinghan. He, young master, what do you want to know? There's nothing in the Divine E realm that I don't know, as long as it hasn't happened, old Bao said confidently. Yi Qinghan looked around, then stood up and said, follow me to the private room. With a snap of his fingers, the waiter quickly led Yi Qinghan and the others into the private room. Yi Qinghan sat in the main seat and waved his hand, sit anywhere you want. Today, I have a few questions to ask old Mister. As long as you can satisfy me, I'll give you 10 pieces of Ancestor Realm source energy with both hands. Old Bao immediately became excited. 10 pieces of Ancestor Realm source energy, he had never earned so much in his life. I'll tell you everything I know. Old Bao restrained his excitement and said. About the Divine E realm, Divine E mountain, I want to know everything important that you know. Yi Qinghan said calmly. This. Old Bao looked at Yi Qinghan in surprise and said helplessly, don't tell me you don't have any specific information that you want to know. I know so much information. If you want me to tell you everything, I don't know how many years it would take. Then let's get to the important things. I want to know about God Father. Yi Qinghan stared at old Bao and said indifferently. Hiss, old Bao immediately exploded. This was the first time he had seen someone inquire about God Father's information. Are you an outsider? Old Bao stood up vigilantly and asked in a deep voice. Yi Qinghan smiled and shook his head. He said indifferently, no, God Father is also my God Father, one of the ancestors. You don't have to be nervous. I just want to know more about God Father because I have worshipped him since I was young. When old Bao looked at Yi Qinghan, there wasn't much hostility in his eyes. According to what Yi Shan had said, outsiders were all demons, and Yi Qinghan didn't seem to be one. News about God Father is strictly forbidden to spread. God Father is supreme and the greatest. Young man, you can worship him, but you can't casually inquire about or spread news about God Father. I can't earn this ancestor realm source energy. Take it back. Old Bao firmly threw the ancestor realm source energy to Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan did not expect the people here to respect Ho Yi to this extent. Even if he had money, it would not be useful. Then can you tell me about God Father's weapon, the sun shooting immortal destroying Bao? Yi Qinghan took a step back and asked in a serious voice. Old Bao raised his eyebrows and said, "You should ask the people of Divine Yi Mountain about this matter. How can I, a commoner, know about such a supreme existence?" Yi Qinghan helplessly smiled and pushed the ancestor realm source energy to Old Bao. He said indifferently, "Last question, how do I get to Divine Yi Mountain?" Old Bao was almost certain that Yi Qinghan was not from the inner realm. Otherwise, he would not have not known the location of a sacred ground like Divine Yi Mountain. All the way to the east, Hua. Yi Qinghan did not wait for Old Bao to finish speaking. His eyes shot out a ray of light and a terrifying soul spirit swept towards Old Bao. It directly cut off his last moment. Whoosh, Yi Qinghan waved his hand and directly took little Baihu and Sovereign Yi away, leaving behind a muddle-headed Old Bao. He had forgotten everything that Yi Qinghan said to him and even forgot about Yi Qinghan's existence. Let's go to the vicinity of Divine Yi Mountain first. There must be legends about Ho Yi and the sun shooting immortal destroying Bao. As long as we confirm the location of the sun shooting immortal destroying Bao, we can take the initiative. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Alright, I'm finally free. Sovereign Yi shouted excitedly. Little Baihu had been quietly following them. The three of them moved forward slowly. After all, the grace ceremony would only begin 3 years later. By then, there would be a sea of people and endless information. On the way, Sovereign Yi gnawed on a chicken leg with his mouth full of oil. He asked curiously, "Boss, what if we have a conflict with Ho Yi's successor? Can we kill them?" Yi Qinghan shook his head and said seriously, "They don't understand, but we do. Don't kill them." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.